That's better.
There you go.
Mild little mic issue there. I muted it before I put the music on, forgetting that the music turns the mic off. See how prepared we are for this show. You can tell how it's been ages since I've done a live stream. So it was about time I did more of these and get back into practice.
I
So
turned
yeah,
up an hour early.
yeah, he was so eager to come on the show. You know, he made it sound like I had to twist his arm to come on, but he's the one who turned up an hour early to say, I'm ready. And it's like, wait a minute, we don't start till 7. And given my history of getting things wrong when it comes to time zones, I thought, hang on, GMT, BST, have I just done that again? So he made me panic a little bit, right up to the point when my laptop decided it didn't want to switch on for a bit. So it's like, yeah, everything was just kind of leading up to this one. It's almost as if the designers didn't want us to do this list, but it's totally fine. So yeah, everybody, thanks for turning up. This is another Top 10 Live, one that's been voted on by the Patreon. So thanks everybody who does support the Patreon. I give a tier of Patreons the chance to vote on a list every now and again. I pump them with a few ideas. They can support their own. But I check out the votes and see which ones gets the most. And then that tends to be kind of like the order I do them in. But I kind of leapfrogged it a minute on the last one because I should skip straight to sandbox games. Because I kind of thought, well, that's an easier list to do right now. And I wanted to do this one live. And obviously, I couldn't exactly say to Mark, oh yeah, can we do this list now? Like literally the tomorrow. You know, that would kind of work. So it should be fine. But now, I've got Mark Monk with me, NinjaGeek Games. You would have seen him once on the show. I can't remember which was the list you did with me before.
6-player games, was it?
That does ring a bell, yeah, because people wanted like high player games. I mean, which is kind of a weird list to do because when it's like, all right, I've got 6 players, what do I want to do? Split them up? I mean, what's wrong with that?
No, never do that.
But couldn't exactly make the list. But now we were due to get more on, and as I see Mark every now and again at cons, but also, and this is more a twisty arm type thing. Come the UK Games Expo, I've got to half teach a full game of Hegemony, which I have no problems playing Hegemony, but it wasn't my first plan to do at the Games Expo to sit in a hall and play 4-hour Hegemony, but I think it's just my mission now that I have to play Hegemony at every single convention, no matter where it is. Although I think I might draw the line at Essen. I don't see myself playing it there. That'd be a bit much. I don't want to be in the Premier Inn playing Hegemony. That's not going to work. But Hegemony should be good. So yeah, Mark and you, is it your mates, just mates of yours that are just turning up for this?
Yeah, it's part of my game group. Yeah.
How about that? Yeah. There they go. So yeah, as long as if they got half an idea, then fine, we should be okay. But that's not for this list. So we've got top 10 irritating designer quirks, decisions, board game design bits we don't like. I mean, you can kind of phrase it however you like. This is not to single out designers or anything like that. I'm not even going to mention any designers by name, frankly. And we'll use games as examples only, to illustrate this, even though I think pretty much everything on my list features in multiple games. So this is not like a one game fits this type. But it's more that, we play a lot of board games. There'll be stuff we like and don't like in terms of the games and that. But even in a good game, there can still be these elements which are like, oh, we still putting this in games? Is this still a thing? Or I wish this was taken out of this game because it would be like near perfect otherwise. And, little things like that come up every now and again. And it's just to find 10 that kind of irk me the most out of them. Although there wasn't tons. I think I probably had like about 15, 20 that I had to cull down to 10. But not too bad. But then it depends on how broad or narrow you go. So your smile leads me to believe that it was either much easier or much harder for you.
No, I not much irks me. So I found it quite difficult. And then as I started, I was going, actually, that really annoys me. Oh, this really annoys me as well. And I got worse and worse as it goes on. So
I'll say we're both from the West Country, so we should be able to be easily annoyed. That shouldn't be a problem. and so Hexy Beats has board game nitpicks is probably another way to put it. So that'll work on there. So you'll be getting the chance. So we have got the Hexy Beast. We've got Chloe, Christoph, Malik, right? And hopefully we'll get some more. I mean, I can see there's a few people viewing, but it always tends to build up as the evening goes on. So just think, is there anything else you want to say about the list?
No, I did start off with some components and like box designs and things, but then I took those off and just did changes.
We're gonna stop those. I only found out about the last minute, but yeah, I've stayed out of doing components and aesthetics, because I think that's more a publisher thing.
Yeah.
When you have a publisher do it, they're the ones who say, right, it's going to look like this, and we'll put this theme around it. So those aspects I'm kind of staying away from, because I don't think the designer gets a huge amount of say on it. Or if he does, it's, like I say, it's a shared problem. I don't think the designer is responsible for me saying that, like, the start player marker is stupid or something like that. I think that's more a publisher thing. So it shouldn't be too bad. But, all right, let's get on. Right, I think we have to just get on with it.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Go for it, Mark. You start.
Okay, for me, it's games that are highly competitive, or that have no asymmetric factions or play. So two that come to mind. One was a game I played recently called Cuperium, which is spelled Q-U-I-Perium.
Have I now got to try and find that? Because that's going to be a hard one to see.
Q-U-I. I know, K-U-I.
Cuperium.
Yeah, it was a nice little worker placement game.
What, this thing?
Where is it?
This is it?
Yeah.
I've not heard of this game.
No, it was a nice little two-player game. But there was just no faction asymmetry, and I just thought that was very strange, especially for a dueling card game. And it didn't matter how you played, you were just doing the same thing over. I quite liked it, but I just thought asymmetric play would have made it a bit better. And I was just quite surprised. And there was another one I reviewed a long time ago, which was called Techlandia. And the game was pretty bad anyway. But you were moving about this
oh god, that covers horrible.
Yeah, I know. And it was, select your character at the start. And so you look through these character cards, and they're all identical. So it didn't really matter who you played as. And I just thought that was a really silly thing to do. It really frustrated me, because I thought there's no point, all the same. It just ends up being luck.
Well, is it? Well, I don't know. I mean, isn't it the case that if they're not any different, then, I mean, how's that any different to say chess? You're not asymmetric in chess, apart from who goes first.
Yeah, true. No, I just, because I just thought the asymmetric play would have made the game a lot better. There were things they could have done to start the game differently, so you end up with different objectives or goals or starting abilities or something that I thought would have made the games a lot better.
So I guess rather than saying highly competitive, it's more of a case of everyone's the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everyone's the same, doing the same thing.
There we go. Everyone's the same. Which would explain why you're so desperate to get a Gemini learned, because obviously there's...
Yeah, I mean, I do like really competitive games. I much prefer them over co-op games if I had a choice.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to find out about all sorts of weird games, though, doing this list, because you get a lot of these indie games in, or these Kickstarter ones, that I've now grown out of just avoiding, like, anything. I mean, it's, I get the emails for Kickstarter projects from so-and-so indie designer and that, and I mean, 99.9% of the time, I'm going to say no, or just ignore it, because I just cannot... I wouldn't be able to review them all, even if I wanted to. And I'm not expecting, like, the next Ticket to Ride to suddenly arise from it, so... But... I've seen like some of the stuff you've done, and not these two particular games, I must admit. These two have surprised me, but it's just, I look at them and I go, that was a Kickstarter, wasn't it? It had to be. So, but I'm curious to know, if one of these wasn't a Kickstarter, then how I would have missed it, I don't know. Okay, no. All right, well, tell them mine. I don't think I have a specific game example for this. This one's like kind of a small irk, but... You get to the end of the game, you've played it, you've been competitive, you've got your victory points, and then somebody else counts up theirs, and it's the same number as yours. So you go back to, you think like, yeah, you know what, I want to know what the tiebreaker is. And you go to the back of the book, and there isn't one. That gets annoying. It's like, I'm all up for sharing victory in something like a semi-co-op thing, Cosmic Encounter, or like, stuff like that, or team game. That's okay. But... and if I have to share the victory at the end of the day, fine. But this is hopefully after, say, about 3 or 4 different tiebreakers, in which case we can call it an actual draw. But, it's not difficult to make a tiebreaker. And when you get to the end at the back of the book, it just says, if you have the same number of points, share the victory, or enjoy your shared victory. It's like, no!
I did hard.
Yeah. It's like, you just made me do my 2-hour... game of claim victory points, and now you tell me I've got to share it. It's like, no, anything, most money wins, most buildings made, most highest up a church track. I don't know. It's like if it's a Stefan Feld game, I guess, but it can't be that hard to come up with a tiebreaker.
Have you ever played Blood Bowl Team Manager card game?
I did once. I couldn't understand what I was doing. The rulebook's horrendous.
After that, at the end of the game, I really like that. We play that regularly. In fact, we have a yearly tournament and a little trophy we hand out to my game group. But the win condition is the one that has the most points at the end of the game. But there are tiebreakers. There's about 4 or 5. And after the 5th one, it says if you are still drawing after this tiebreak, there's obviously cheating going on. Nobody wins the game.
Well, not necessarily.
I thought that's quite good.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily no cheating. Come on, that's not right.
Well, it's all part of the Blood Bowl theme. Not suggesting we've cheated. That's part of the theme of the game. Is you're bribing. There's been bribing going on. You bribed the Premier League or whatever. And,
at least that one puts a humor theme on it. That's not so bad. Hexy's got some problems if he's getting tiebreakers in solo games, but I tied with the AI, and it's like, nah, the AI cheated, so fine. Hello, Thomas. Hello. Oh God, I have Velky. I swear I'm going to pronounce that wrong. You want to try, Mark?
Velky, yeah, that's like Velky to me.
I don't know if the accent or something on the Y changes the pronunciation or so, but sorry about that. But good to see you here. So just come on, seriously. It's a small thing. It's minor, but for crying out loud, it's not. It takes you 2 seconds to come up with a tiebreaker. So please, for the love of God, do it. Carry on.
Okay, so for number 9, for me, it's any story-driven game with a lot of narrative where you have to make decisions, where you're actually just sat on rails, and it doesn't matter what decision you make.
Cool. I am so glad you ended that with that sentence, because you could, if you'd have full stopped after narrative with it, I'd be like, excuse me?
No. It's where you're sat on rails, and there's the outcome's pointless. So the 2 big games that came to me one was Dune House Secrets.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, I was really excited to play that. I thought this is going to be great. I love Dune, story-driven games. It's going to be brilliant. I just sat there and I just thought, well, it's not even a game. It's just like a story. And solo play for me with Destinies, I really didn't get on with. I found that quite similar. Just sat on rails almost.
Destiny certainly does have that problem, and Do Now Secrets. I mean, this one is so blotted out of my memory because I remember just playing it and it just felt like a whole game of nothing.
Yeah,
like nothing.
A short story, wasn't it? That I can't even remember what the story was about. It was that bland.
I wouldn't even necessarily call it a story. As I say, a story would at least try to keep me engaged. But this one didn't even make any solitary effort.
No, it was
and Destiny's wasn't much better.
It calls it something like a game. It says it's some type of game on the back, and I was like, it's not a game. Dune House Secrets is not a game.
I'm not even sure I'd call Destiny as a game. I mean, I was one of the few. I remember some people were just going absolute mad for Destinies at the time, going, "Oh yeah, this is really cool." And I was like, "No, it isn't." It's like you play it in a competitive game, and it's just luck of which direction you went. And if you play it solo, the story is very bland. I don't think there's that many branching paths in the narrative. I got to admit, I have seen this occasionally in some good games as well. I mean, I love the Tainted Grail series, and I play those. I've played for the death of those, but you do notice occasionally, not often, but occasionally, you get a point where it says choose one of 4 different options. It will give you a different paragraph, but then it leads you to the same paragraph afterwards. And it's like, well, okay, I get that's good from a flavor perspective, but if it doesn't actually influence the story, whichever one I pick, then why is it a factor? It's worse, actually. I think I've seen in some games where combat is almost tied to it. So the combat might give you a couple of outcomes depending on how well you did. But it doesn't actually matter if you did it really well or just did it a bit well. Just
gives you a big clap or a small clap.
Yeah, it's just different narrative. It's like, I'm sorry, if you're not going to give me extra XP or give me some cool piece of loot or something, then I'm not going to be incentivized to do really well and put myself out and use up all my resources if all I've got to do is just the bare minimum. But now that does work well. I thought you were literally just going to talk about narrative games being pointless or something. It's like, seriously, no.
Narrative games, but they've got to have a point.
Yeah, true. This one, again, I think we're going pretty minor on this one, but I attribute this to lazy board game design, because I think that far too many games just throw this in for the sake of it, and they don't actually bother to see whether it, really is necessary or there's a point to it. And for me, one of the laziest things you can do is add an event deck. Yeah, because some games have done it in expansion, some games have done it in like their actual thing, but event decks are boring. They're not fun. They're just literally there to go, oh wait, we just need to throw in some random effects. So like, fine, put in an event deck. Some element of randomness that can either benefit one player or completely screw another. They could be completely random. It makes no difference. And so, why put it in the game? Is there like not a better way to do it? I did have one example I was going to put, but I've literally just thought of a better example, which is Age of Rome. Okay. Which is good because it means I can use the other game for a different example later on. But Age of Rome's a half decent game. I got it from Essen last time. It looks the absolute beans, and it's an interesting little Euro game. But the problem is, it's one of its biggest problems is it has an event deck. This bit up here, which dictates how this thing moves and also gives some random effect. But the effect is random as to whether it triggers, but also random as to whether it's good or bad. And this is only a game that I think has about 4 rounds in it or something. Like, it doesn't have that many rounds. So, well, I forget how many rounds, but like an X number of rounds, it's short. So you haven't got time to make up for a lot of these really bad things that can happen to you. And also, because this is a game where the thing twirls around in the kingdom that you are in charge of for a round, it's dictated by which way it turns. We played a 3-player game of this when I was showing it off, and like, one of those districts does not get built up. And we just had the event deck constantly go left, right, left, right, left, right. So this poor one person kept getting the crappy district, while 2 of us kept getting each other's like decent built ones on it. And so much so that even I think the designers in that themselves sort of, they either put in, I don't know if they put in a variant or they said like, oh, you could, if you want, just ignore the event effect and just go with the arrow. And it's like, well, you put the event deck in the game, so how can you tell me it's not worth it?
Event decks. You just all event decks, not crappy event decks, just standard.
Well, to be honest, do you know of a good event deck?
Yeah, things like Arkham Horror and things like that have event decks that have ongoing things that you have to do, like side missions almost. They're pretty good.
The only thing I would say about that is more, they are events, yes, but they're narrative events. I mean, it's a whole narrative story that you're telling. Yeah. So those cards are adding to the story as you play. It's almost a bit like, I suppose, go back to Tainted Grail, opening up that journal book and reading the paragraph when you go to a particular location. It's on that similar line. Event decks here aren't telling a story. It's literally just saying pestilence, lose 2 cubes from something. It's not actually those stories being told. And it happens a lot in expansions as well. Like, this expansion adds this element and this element and a deck of random events because we couldn't be bothered to come up with something else. It's, occasionally they're tolerable, and it's not like, oh, I hate the game because it's got event decks, but it always usually ends up being the weak element. Okay. Or the bit that I'm like, this is cool, this is whatever. So I chuck it away and wish I didn't have to use it. And if it's a variant, fantastic, I don't have to use it. But, some games, it's always like the worst module of the lot. Do you remember a game called, what was it called? Kingsburg. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I remember. I've not played that one. I know it.
Eons ago, yeah, the expansion came up with like a few modules or something, and one of them was literally just an event deck. It was like, it almost just seemed like, right, we got this cool module, I don't know, come up with something else. Fine, event deck, it'll do. It's like,
it's stuck on the side.
Yeah, I mean, I love my Arc Nova game. I do not want them to have an expansion where every round or every coffee break I turn up a new event card or something. It's like, I don't want, you gotta think about it. And I mean, Hexy mentions that I hate them less in Euros. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, in a narrative game like you described, it actually does work, although they're more like story cards as opposed to an event deck. But yeah, you put it in a straight up, just bland, like typical Euro game. It's like, why? I don't know. But as I say, I think that's the last of the two really minor ones now. I think they do get a bit more serious as we go on to number 8. Well, hey, Kabuki, thanks for joining us.
It sounds like you're already going for the kill. So my number 8 is similar to yours with event decks, but I've titled mine "Stupid Event Decks." So
Right, okay.
For the card, and that one card just ruins the game. So things like Mansions of Madness, where you have I can't remember which scenarios. You play the game, one card, depending on when you draw it, that player can't speak for the rest of the game. And it's a co-op
yeah.
game. And so my friend said he owns the game, but he's just taking it out. He just says, I just don't like it. It's a co-op game, and it's just a stupid event. So, yeah, I
think that crazy, stupid, broken card sounds like a good one on there. I totally... You're not the only person to have seen that Mansions of Madness one, though. I've seen that, and yeah, I would gladly just rip up the card and never look at that one again. But I'm trying to think of other ones. I mean, you mentioned actually
another list in the list. I've got a similar thing where a card pops up, but I'll explain that one later.
Fair enough. One that I'll mention actually briefly to sort of give you a hand with that one actually is Arkham Horror. No, not Arkham Horror. Eldritch Horror. So, Eldritch Horror has one card in it that is shuffled out of every single game, whether it's my copy or not. I don't care. We're not putting it in.
Which
the
one?
The Cthulhu mission. You know the mission cards for each old one. Cthulhu. I think it's either one of his mission cards or it's no. Sorry, it's a Mythos card. It's one of the hard Mythos cards frozen because they came out of like 3 different difficulty levels. One of the hard mission cards, I think it either automatically does it, or if you are in a certain situation, it triggers off. But it removes what the last progress stage thing that you did for the boss, and you have to do it all again. So it pretty much...
that puts you back a huge step.
Yeah, it basically undoes the last hour and a bit of the game.
And it's a long game as well.
Yeah, there's stupid bits like that. But although... Funny enough, you mentioned like crazy, stupid, broken cards in the sense of, okay, fine, crazy, stupid. Mine's actually not too dissimilar because mine is stupid thing mechanics. So it's stupid things from a perspective, but when I say stupid things, it's not necessarily. I mean, to be fair, actually, your Mansions of Madness card could fit into this category. A dumb thing like don't talk, but for me. It's when designers just put these stupid little things in games where you are essentially acting stupid because the game tells you to. If I play a funny game like Detective Club or Deception or like some other humorous game that generates a bit of laughter, we're doing that around the table. The game is helping us do that. We're not picking up a card that says, you don't talk, haha, or something like that. And it gets on my wit when I see it. I mean, in games where the whole premise is being stupid, it's just like, I'm not interested in playing that game anyway. But the worst contender I came up with recently, I mean, I hate this game for more than one reason, trust me about it, but I don't care if everybody else loves it. I can't stand Feed the Kraken. And the Feed the Kraken on one of its spaces, there's this knife space up here, right? You don't always land on it, but it could, is it showing up? Yeah, there you go. So there's this knife space here above the island. You won't always hit it, but all these other things is like, I get to look at somebody's card, or I get to, they got one for flogging, which is kind of insane. But yeah, you basically get to do something to try and figure out an identity. If you go over the knife space, you basically are essentially cutting out someone's tongue, and that person can't speak the rest of the game. I mean, why stop there with stupid mechanics? I mean... the game's not meant to be taken seriously, I know, but you've got this other stuff about, a cult going on and pirates versus sailors and that, and yet you've got something where in a game that's social deduction, so a game where you're actively meant to talk to people, here's something that stops you talking.
Yeah,
and it's just, but it's just stupid, and you get some in some Euro games where I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was like called it wasn't called Via Magica or something Magica. It was something like that. It was like a little engine builder game, but it mentions like, right, okay, carry on like this. But if you get a tiebreaker, first person to shout gets it. Also,
Brilliant.
there was a 2-player that I think it was like, if you tie on something, whoever croaks like a frog first gets it. And it's just, for God's sake, this is. I haven't played the magical one I've heard of, and I've played. It was like a small Euro one. I haven't played this. It's a 2-player abstract game. It's actually, other than that stupid rule, fairly serious. I haven't played it, but Z Garcia talked about it, and I do know which game he's on about. But when he explained that, it's just like, this is a 2-player abstract game, so we're talking chess levels of intellect here. But then at random times it expects you to croak like a frog. It's like, come on. And I'm just done with that. It's like, take your game seriously, or if you're going to make these stupid mechanics, make the game all that, advertise this, and then I can avoid your game. It'd be a lot easier. But, we already have games like that. They're called things like Happy Salmon, right? Yeah. Which is nothing but stupid thing mechanics, but at least I know it's all stupid thing mechanics, therefore I can avoid the game like the plague. It's just not something I want. But yeah, both of us basically on the lines of stupid things, crazy stupid things.
Right, so number 7 is similar to the stupid events. I mean, there's one event card in the game that I take out because of it, but it's if you're playing a game with player elimination and you've got unavoidable or just unpredictable deaths, things that you just can't do anything about. You draw a card and it just goes, you're dead. And it just, especially for me, it's when I'm playing Nemesis. I love Nemesis. It's a 4 or 5 hour game. There's one card that I take out of the game, and it's a fire card that just spreads everywhere. And so you halfway through the game, you're doing as much as you can, and then the whole ship just blows up because of that one card. But it's not just things like that. It's have you played Forge War?
Is that giant box Kickstarter?
No, this is an old game. It was I forget his name now. We did Gloomhaven. I forgot his name. Same guy who did Gloomhaven did it. Forge War. It's you're like making weapons for adventurers and things. When you play solo, you've got a list of cards that you can like contracts that you can claim, and as you can see them all, sometimes you just know. Yeah, I said Isaac. Yeah. You just know that you can't progress any further, and you think, right, it's just going to be a matter of time now before the game's over. I can't win because I can't get the resources, and there's nothing that's been drawn. Pointless me continuing, even though you've got a lot of the game left. So, and there was a game as well. I can't remember what it was called, but one player could just decide to nuke the whole game and just end it.
Oh,
what was that?
Was it? I can't remember. It was called. No, it wasn't called Fauna. It was something. It was about like saving the world, wasn't it? It was like global, or something like that. But I forget what it was.
You just end the game and just go, right, I'm not winning. I'm just going to end the game, and it's basically almost like a table flip.
Yeah. Stupid ones there. I've heard of this Forge War. I think mates of mine have played it, and I've looked at it and gone, this looks a little bit big and insane.
It is. It's big, it's dry, but I like it a lot. It's really good solo, but sometimes you just get a load of cards and you just look down the line going, well, I'm going to be done in 3 turns, and you're halfway through the game, and it's nothing that you could have done differently. It's just that draw of the card. So it's a bit
unfortunately with that one, but yeah, I think I'm not massive on Gloomhaven, so I might have avoided it at that point. Trying to think of other examples that you might have done. I mean, Sudden Nemesis is a good one, yeah, because a friend of mine wanted to teach another person we knew Nemesis, and I thought Nemesis is very hit and miss for me. It either works or it crashes and burns. So I thought, all right, fine, I'll jump in this one, 3-player game. I swear it took like about an hour to set the thing up and teach the rules, like it always does. I think this third guy played for 10 minutes.
Really?
Before he got killed. Yeah. Before he got killed by aliens that just happened to spawn near, and there's nothing you could do. And it's just like, well, I hope you enjoyed that lecture, because that's pretty much all you've done for the last hour and a half.
I do like Nemesis. I mean, I'll play it every time someone gets it out. I'll play, but it's either a very short hour game, which frustrates me, or it's a long, good game that you've worked hard. But when that one bloody fire thing comes out and it spreads, you've got no hope. And it always depends when that card comes out as well.
Another one's Dead of Winter, the Frostbite die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. Frostbite dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is typically one of the things that people do hate about that one, and certainly, one of my beefs. That even at the start of the game, you might just constantly, every time you go outside, just die, and you have no chance of doing anything. It can't work. Yep, that's right. This one again. Do I have ideas for this one? Not to enough. I don't think there's a specific game that comes to mind. I suppose the game I can think of is Evacuation. So, the recent game done by... Oh, damn it. Why am I brain farting with the designers' names? It's like Vladimir Suhi. Yeah, and I've got plenty enough stuff that I like from Vladimir Suhi. Evacuation was one I kind of bounced off. But this is just not because of this thing. But what I do notice is that some games, particularly Kickstarter games, just can't stop putting variants in their games. And where you get the impression that the person didn't actually know how to design their game. They kind of want the players to figure out the best way to play their game. So they come up with one rule set, and then they say, right, but here's about 6-7 variants on how you can change things up. And it's like, well, how about you design one good variant?
Yeah.
How about you just design a good game to begin with, and then we don't need all these variants?
Yeah.
Because you try some of the variants, and they're either... Well, I mean, they range from boring to broken to so good, why is this not the way we should be playing it?
Yeah, no, I agree. Things like, is it Taverns of Tiffenthal? That has like 4 additional modules, but you can't play the second module unless you've got the first one in play. And you can't play the third one unless you've got the first 2 in play. Now, so I had them all, but if you weren't a fan of the first 3, then I don't think you've got a choice. If you wanted to play the 4th, you have to include them all.
I mean...
Include it all. It's a good game with all the modules, and it gives you options for it.
Yeah, because Evacuation's only got 2. I keep thinking it's got more, but I mean, to be fair, the variants in Evacuation are problematic anyway. And also bearing in mind that the game is either actually technically it has 3, because it's either points or race mode. So you've already got a variant for how you do that. You've got the action cards, which actually make the game worse. So, you've either got fixed actions, or you've got these action cards that are random when you get them, range and power level, and can just pretty much break somebody's game if they draw bad. But also it's got another little points variant, which for some reason, as you score more points, if you can get stuff in diagonal lines, it's like, who cares? But even then, I mean, Evacuation is a good probably actually fits this better, because it was points or race mode. And I think the designer wanted it in race mode. All the Euro gamers came by saying, I want it in victory point mode because I love victory points. And so you ended up with 2 versions of a game of which you kind of try to please everybody, but you don't please anybody.
Okay.
And as I say, this is a milder case of it. But yeah, I have seen some Kickstarter games and some other ones where you just see about 5-6 variants at the back of the book, and it's just like, why? Why? It also comes down to the one that I really hate from Kickstarter is when a game comes out saying you can play this competitive, co-op, or semi-co-op. That is like a red flag to the game is going to suck. Because, you haven't spent enough time developing one way of playing it. You've made it do all 3.
Yeah.
And inevitably it won't work at least 1, if not 2 of those.
Jack of all trades then, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's trying to please everybody, and it doesn't work. And, with variants, if I see that the book's got a lot of variants, it just makes me think that the original base game is either a little underdeveloped, or this designer has listened to too many focus groups or playtesters who have all, he's come up with, he's given it to about 6 different playtest groups, each of which has a few people that come up with a unique idea each, and he's decided that each of these ideas is great. Rather than saying to these people, no, that's stupid, or you know what, this game's bloated enough as it is, I don't need more.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You jump at that, but just design one good game. One good game, one good mode. Then when expansions come out, you can throw in something like that. Because then if we don't think it's going to work, we can avoid the expansion. But if it's in the game, we've now got to have all these little mini... and if it's a variant to the rules, it's not too bad. But where, like you mentioned, it's modules, and you're forced to use them, particularly if, or like one says, oh, I like this, I want to use this module. But if you're using module 1, you can't use module 3. And it's like, for Christ's sake, it's like, just find a way for it to work.
Right, number 6, is it?
Yep, 6-6.
So as I said, I prefer competitive games, but I will play co-op games. But when I play a co-op game, I like to be able to talk to the other people that I'm playing with. So things that irk me is when you play a game and it says it's co-op, but you can only tell people part of your actions and things. And one that comes to mind is Gloomhaven. So I like Gloomhaven.
Yes.
Play the game, it says you can tell people you're going to attack, but you can't tell them with how much or what it's going to do. And I'm like, but surely that if I was fighting someone, I'd be like, hang on a minute, I'm just going to pull out a big sword and chop their head off. But you can't do that. You've just got to tell them how you feel about your attack. I feel this is going to be a good one. I think that frustrates me a lot.
No, that actually works quite well. It is one beef with Gloomhaven, and I'm trying to think of other examples that have done that. Like
there are some. There was one I can't remember what it was. It was one I played the other day, and it was you couldn't talk to your teammates, and I just thought it's not co-op then. It's just kind of on your own.
There have been ones like that. There was one a while back. I never played it, but I know of it. It was a Cthulhu-based Euro game. I think it was called Witch of Salem. And you're supposed to be closing these portals, and you go in. But the idea is that when somebody is nearby, that person can't tell you, should I go through this door or not? It's just like, well, what? Why? So, we're working together to get rid of these portals. Why can't you tell me that I should go into this one? It's like, well, I don't know. You just have to try. It's like, why?
Yeah. No, agree. Yeah, I just what does that say here? Hidden info. Yeah, hidden info and co-ops frustrates me. Yeah, it does frustrate me a lot.
Well, because at the end of the day, even something like Pandemic and that, don't you always have your cards out rather than having
on the table, don't you? Yeah.
But I mean, these are the cards you're on about. It's this initiative value. Yeah, the fact that I can't tell you what value my initiative is.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
How often my attack is, or
because the argument you have with it is that, okay, fine. Let's say there's 2 people and they've played their 2 characters to death or something like that. If they've managed to pretty much memorize what these cards are like, roughly, like, you're thinking of doing that. Oh, that's a really high initiative card or something. Then you're basically just saying that if someone's got a cheat sheet, it's fine of all these initiative values. Why even have it in the first place? It just I don't know, but I wonder if there's any other examples, because I know that is
not long ago, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was. And it was only I had to go to Gloomhaven for it because I was trying to think of this game. It's relatively new.
Even that. You go into there. Someone in the comments, get another example for us, because I know there has been more like that where you can't tell somebody that you really should be able to in a game. Right? But yeah, I like that one. Yeah, why can't I tell you? All right, this one's Sky Team. Isn't Sky Team a 2-player game? I thought Sky Team was a 2-player. Isn't that new one that's getting a lot of accolades? I'm not sure, but we'll come back to that one. This again, pretty broad. So not a particular game, although one game that's getting a lot of love lately from mega fans of this designer is certainly a poster child for this sort of thing. But I'm a big person of theme in games. I like themes to work, so that's fine. If you're going to make a game that doesn't go too much with a theme, fine, okay, fine, you're not going to do too much. But what gets on my nerves is when I see a mechanic that is so pointless and abstracted. Like, that it is in there purely for Eurogamer complexity. Like, there's no other reason for it. And biggest beef at the moment that's given me that one is the new inventions, actually, which I know a lot of people are going goo goo gaga for.
I've seen you comment on everybody's post about this.
I'm sorry, I hate this thing. I mean, I like Lacerda. He's right behind me 4 times over, okay? I like his stuff. But his last 2 games have really been a bit like stretchy with the themes. But this one, I mean, this is an example. There are loads of games that do this abstracted mechanic thing, where you put in something in a game that has no purpose being there other than the fact that it's another complex mechanic for Eurogamers. This is the one that Inventions has, which is these tiles. You collect them by various means during the game. Fine, okay, I've done some card flipping or whatever and stuff like that, and I've got these tiles. You're now expected to put them on this grid on your board in various patterns to score more points. Because victory points. I don't know. It's why is it there? This is a game about inventions, and this is basically telling me to make cutesy patterns with tiles. Why? I think Hexy Beast has got the one. Teotihuacan. Yeah, didn't that do the? I'm trying to think if that did a similar thing. I know when you built the pyramid, you had the different symbols that you had to match up, which seemed a little bit like why? Not a massive deal.
About that game, I played it only 2 or 3 times, but every time I played it, I thought it doesn't really matter what I do. I get the same amount of victory points, which dice I take or anything. I seemed lost in the game.
It could be worse on that front. Yeah, the evacuation game I mentioned before. Actually, I'll go back to that game. There's one mechanic that, well, a couple actually. Evacuation's got 2 mechanics that are blatantly just there for Eurogamers. One is that you've got these 2 little satellite things that go around all the planets. And basically how far it progresses is how much you can go on the planet. It's kind of weird. But that's not the most arduous thing. You won't be able to see it much from... I don't think you'll be able to see it easily. But there's a card here that's laid out each round. And basically, when you do these actions, they are numbered 1 to 4 to represent power level. And if with that card, there are 2 bonuses you can get, whether you go higher than a certain number or lower than a certain number. And depending which one you get another bonus. Why? I mean, I'm playing my actions to partially try and terraform this new planet. But at the same time, I'm thinking, right, well, I've done 3. I'll do a 2. As long as I don't do anything that's 3 or more, then I can get this weird bonus. It's just it could have been trimmed out of the game. We wouldn't have missed it. It would have made it cleaner. And it's only in there for Euro fans. There's just no for it. What's Lena got here? The Kutnahor's building symbols. Do you have build symbols, that one?
I've not played that one.
You've got the mine shafts that you do. Well, I suppose, when you're building the buildings around, the different symbols that they've got give you points in various ways. I mean, that's fairly abstracted. I was thinking maybe more the church in there, the Saint Bartholomew's Church, I forget what it's called, but the church tiles that you build, and they've just got random benefits when you build each section of it. Again, because theme, I don't know, question mark. I don't mind if you're gonna make a dry Euro, fine, and if it's not going to be the most thematic one, again, fine, I don't mind that. But just some of these really pointless ones, it's just like when you first ask that question, why is it in this game, and they can't think of a good answer, that's when you know it was just added. And this is an age where I want games to be a bit more streamlined. They can be heavy games, but I would dare say that even Gallerist and Kanban by me are damn sight more streamlined in how they can be taught and how they play compared to something like Weather Machine and Inventions, the 2 new ones. So you can trim out the fat, but when you see these little abstracted mechanics, it's like an aspect of those bits of fat that could have been trimmed. We've cooked this piece of meat, it's good. Here's the fatty bit. Got to deal with it. Weird analogy, but I had pork shoulder the other day, so it's...
So, simple one here is games.
No food in games. Yeah.
Yeah, no food and drink at the table. Not adjusting for player count. So, I had the Kickstarter for Dark Souls. It was a grind of a game, and the community have built some really good house rules for it, which I now use. But initially, you choose 1 of 4 characters. They've all got the same type of stats, but they go up in different values, which means that you couldn't get a double-handed sword for your thief, which meant you couldn't get that. But if you only had 1 or 2 characters in the game, the market deck stayed the same. So you were endlessly drawing cards, spending your souls to draw cards that were completely pointless because you've got a wizard and you keep drawing armor and swords and shields which they can't use, and it just really watered down the deck. So the community built some house rules in for that, which were really good.
Over that, I mean, Dark Souls. Pretty much everybody who's played it has fixed it better than the original design was.
Yeah.
Over
But that was frustrating. It just first couple of times I played, it was just because I played solo with 2 characters. I just ended up just losing all my souls on these wasted cards. Excuse the pun, it was soul destroying. So
yeah, ideas don't come to my head off the top of my head, but I mean, it's a good one. Yeah,
even think about it. I like Eldritch Horror. Now, when you select your players,
1 to 8.
Well, I played at 8 players once actually. We got round once. I think it took about an hour and a half, and we stopped. But if you draw monsters or you spawn monsters and portals, it will say for 1 to 2 players do it here. 3 to 4 players spawn this many. So I'm going, why don't you have 2 players? Don't have the 1, because obviously there's going to be more monsters on the board. So have 2. It's the same amount of monsters. Same with 3 and 4 players. If I'm playing solo, I'll play with 4 characters because there's an even amount of monsters for those 4 rather than 3.
It gets a bit like that. Tainted Grail definitely is harder to play true solo. They tried to scale it a bit for solo, but it doesn't scale quite enough to make the difficulty not kind of insane. Even my Sentinels in the Multiverse game, you play it with 3 players, it's a little bit harder than if you play it with 4, and 5 is almost like a cakewalk because you just got so many players going around. And they do try to balance it to an extent, but it doesn't quite fully work. But yeah, there's a lot of games like that where I probably should have put this on the list, actually. It would certainly have belted one of the bottom 2 off, because it's not even so much like, what monsters can draw. I think it's just more the time length.
Yeah.
Here's this game. It's a Euro game. Great. Right. So it plays, it takes about an hour and a half with 2 of us. All right, sweet. Okay. So it would take about 2.5 with 3, and then suddenly like 5 hours with 4. But it's like, well, okay, fair enough. If we have more players, it's going to add more time. So what have you done to mitigate this? Nothing. Oh, great. So you just expect me to add an extra hour because somebody else decided they want to play. Then why am I including them in the game? Yeah, but that does it. Although, funny enough, we had similar ones on 8 with the stupid mechanics. I've got a similar one for this one as well, actually. Yeah. It's not so... Yours was lack of player scaling. Mine's a very specific player one. It's not just player not scaling. It's, look, this game's fine if you want to play it with 2 to 4 players. Can we sod off with the 5th player? I'm getting sick of this. The infamous 5th player that's added to every game for one purpose only, to sell more copies. There's no reason. Because 90% of the time...
I did a funny TikTok about this. So I did a TikTok of 3 different people. So it was me saying it's my game night, I get to choose the game. And someone else came in and said, I'm this guy, I get to choose the snacks. And then it said, I'm the 5th player, and then it just cuts them off because no one wants to know about them. And we did that a couple of times. So just the 5th player just gets cut off talking each time because nobody likes the 5th player. I like that. The table's got 4 chairs for a reason.
I know, I've got 6 around this table, but I mean, I never have more than 4 of us round anyway. But I hate it when I sit at a table at a game night with 5. I mean, I have to feel like the jerk because they'll be saying like, oh, have we got space in this game? And it's like, yeah, but it's Earth. Earth is not exactly a multiplayer game. I don't want to play it with 5. It's like, it's not enough space on the table to put a 5th player board.
Johnny's asked that if you had a 4-player game, would you buy the 5th player expansion?
The 5th. Well, I mean, I hate the 5th player expansion because it's going back to the event deck thing. It's the lazy thing to put in an expansion. It's like, look, we just want to get more people talking about a game again. Right, we just need to put new stuff in. Easy thing, new player color. Yeah, you can play it with 5 now. Okay, so how have you balanced it with 5 players? We haven't. Just play it with more players. Why? I'm not going to. I mean, yeah, some games work okay with 5. I played Isle of Skye yesterday, and we did play it with 4 in the end, but I was willing to have a 5th player because it cuts off a round. You know, certain things happen in order to mitigate it. But the example I had where clearly it's one of those, we shoved it in just simply to sell more copies, is one of my favorite games. I do really love Tribes of the Wind, but it can be played 2 to 5 players. There is no reason to play this above 3. You know, let alone 5, because it's all based on what your 2 neighbors have got in terms of their cards facing you. So I care about the 2 neighbors. You could say if I've got a 4th player, the person opposite me doesn't influence me, but okay, he's influencing the other 2. But then what's the 5th player doing? You know, I'm just adding, and all it does is adds more time to the game. It doesn't make any, you know, it doesn't do anything else extra. It's just, here's more time. And every game now is just 5th player expansion, 5th player expansion, 6th player expansion. You know, you can now play Earth with 6 players. You can now play Cascadia with 6 players. It's like, I never want to. There's got to be more examples I can think of.
At 5 players.
Hmm?
I don't mind playing Scythe at 5 players. I like Scythe.
Scythe's a bit better with more players in the sense. I mean, it can go the other way because you can have games where, you know, they put 2 and 3 on the box, and clearly it's meant to be a big group game. Yeah, those ones certainly. What's my game I got there? Skull King and the crew are good at 5. I don't know about Skull King, but crew. The crew's fine at 5. Yeah, I mean that one doesn't break at 5. Certainly not compared to some others. But I mean, I can't remember if Mystic Veil I've got here does 5, or maybe within the expansion it allowed you to do 5. But it's just. No, Spirit Island, you can do those with 5 and 6. As Mike mentions, like, I'm sorry, but no. I refuse to play Spirit Island with more than 4. And even then, 4 requires everybody to know what they're doing. And then some.
Christoph's, but what about Heat?
Is it? I can't see that one. Oh, there is, yeah. What about Heat? Racing games are a bit different, I think. Racing games like to have a lot of players because a lot of the times they're simultaneous anyway. So something like Heat or Downforce, for example, has everybody kind of acting for the most part at the same time. So that's not usually too big a deal. And with a racing game, you kind of want a lot of people on. I think it's more the Euro games, like we mentioned with the last pick. You know, 5 players rarely makes a Euro game better because most of the time it just adds more time to the game. And if it's already too long with 4, then why the hell do I want it with 5? You know, the excuse of, we want to be sociable with more players does not work if you're making the game sucky for everybody. Yeah, we can socialize fine, but we can play something that's designed to have 5 or more players, not something that you've just bolted it on to sell another copy. And it is all just to sell copies because we'll get to that. I don't know. I'll come back to this a little bit later because otherwise I'm going to overlap with something a bit later. But yeah, I just don't. I don't get how it works. Why you would do that? So, before I start babbling, let's get on to 4. Something nicer.
So for me, number 4 is this one's a prime example. The Thing.
I've not played that yet. Still
31. I like the game a lot, but there is a massive loophole in it that you can. The whole idea is that one of you is, or more of you is the Thing. Well, one of you is the start as the Thing, and then as you're meant to destroy the game, a bit like Dead of Winter, put cards in the wrong places and things. But what I've found out is that when you play, you can actually win as the Thing just by doing nothing. Just by playing normally, doing everything a human would be doing, and you can win the game because nobody suspects you, and you do everything nice and everything correct, and you end up getting on the helicopter, and you can win the game that way just by doing nothing. So it's kind of ruined the game for me now, and I don't know if I play it again because that's what you can do.
Which version of the Thing is that? Because there's so many of them.
That's Infection at Outpost 31.
This big monstrosity one, because there's like that 4 or 5 different Thing games.
Yeah, I think it's up to 8 players, is it, or 6? I can't remember. But yeah, it's a very simple game, but it's really good fun. But then suddenly I realised I played it once and I was the Thing, and I thought, if I do nothing, and I just did nothing and played normally and put all the good cards in, and we got through because you meant to go through stages by fighting the monsters. and no one could figure out who it was because no one corrupted the game.
But then how does the thing win in that instance?
Get on the helicopter, you all get voted on. So one of
Oh,
you
I see. Right, so they don't stand out, but if they get on the helicopter at the end, they win because they're on the helicopter, right?
Yeah, because they go around to the mainland. Yeah, so it was.
Yeah, so why would you do anything?
Yeah, I know, but it was not till I realised. I was like, oh my god, I'm just going to play normal. And so now it's kind of ruined the game for me, which is a shame because I really liked it.
But how did that not come up in playtesting?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, towards the end of the game, other people can get infected, but you still play normal. They might not get on, but you can still win. And only if one thing gets on the helicopter, all of the things win. So yeah, you just do nothing.
Just keep stum.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
There's no incentive.
No, that's what I mean. Is I just can't play it anymore. I've got the other one by is it Pendragon Games? That's a lot better version, that one, because there are instances where you have to do that. So,
although if that's forcing you to do it, I don't know if that works much better. But that is crazy. I mean, I thought Dead of Winter was bad with the whole right. I can't win this game, therefore I'm just gonna, I can't hoard enough cans of beans to win, therefore nobody wins. I mean, you mentioned it earlier with the one where you can just nuke stuff.
Yeah,
but I mean, yeah.
What Fury of Dracula? I've not played Fury of Dracula. Can you just?
I don't recall Fury of Dracula having that problem. I mean, because one side has to kill Dracula, but Dracula still has to do stuff. He's got to do various objectives to win.
Be less aggressive. If you be more aggressive, yeah.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't know how aggressive I've been with Dracula. I guess maybe I have been too aggressive with him because I'm almost like, right, I can't stay hidden all the time. At some point, I need to go om nom nom, but maybe doing it at the wrong time. But I get with that. I say it's amazing what doesn't come up in testing. As Hexy B says, I'm sorry, there is no way that thing did not come up in playtesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was just so frustrating, and it suddenly just clicked, and I went, oh my god, if I do nothing, I'm just going to be as a human, and it worked. I went all the way through.
But you could read the rules and tell that that's a thing. You don't even need an explanation. Because other games have like hidden traitors in there, but they've got to do something by the end.
Yeah,
Shadows over Camelot has a hidden traitor in it, but you can't sit as the traitor and do absolutely nothing bad because then the good guys will just win. So and I think that's what kills it with the thing, is that because you make it that the end game condition is an easy thing for the bad guys to win with, or the bad guys can win if the game just plods on as normal, then that's what kills it, because all these other games with hidden traitors will let the good guys win if the bad guy doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do that.
New Angeles over there, sort of far left, the Netrunner universe negotiation game I really like. You've got a Federalist player in there, so 6 corporations, they all have their own agenda to win, but one of them wants the city to tank, whereas the others are trying to at least keep it stable. If the Federalist does nothing, then the Federalist will not win, period. Because the city, I mean, unless the players do so badly that the city tanks, but I doubt that. I doubt the city would tank unless the Federalist tried to do something. And so it does at least force the bad player to do so. But cool, blimey, how on earth does that work?
Yeah. No, it was frustrating. It's quite sad to find out as well.
For that, Exibus has got another one. Like in God of War, there is nothing pushing you forward, so you can just take as long as you need to do everything. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. It's not so much do nothing, but it's just like, no, there's no rush. I'll just explore. Yeah. Why not? Although it can go to the other extreme of that. If you've played Lord of the Rings Journeys to Middle-earth, if you don't play it on adventure mode, then the timer is so tight that it's like, oh, I could explore all this stuff, but no time, gotta get going. In fact, Unsettled that I've been trying to play at the moment, the exact same thing. It's like you've got all these cool little things that you could explore, but if you try to, you'll lose because you'll just run out of time. That always gets it. Oh man, that's gonna haunt me for a while. That is that thing one. I can't believe that got past. So I know some people who occasionally play that, actually. I've got to bring that up next time I see them on the table and just ask, has anybody actually tried this?
Yeah.
All right. On my one, yes, I mean, this could be campaign games. Certainly campaign games I've played recently have this problem, but then Euro games can have this problem, particularly with regards to their solo mode. But one thing that I just don't get that designers are doing at the moment, I don't know what sparked it, is there's this obsession now that when they create solo modes, you can have levels of difficulty, or like easy, medium, hard, that kind of thing. But for some reason, designers have got it in their head that, oh, wait a minute, hang on, which one are we on? We're on... I'm going to have to switch these two round because I've got them in the wrong order, but never mind. That's an easy correction. But yeah, I'm kind of just sick and tired of insane difficulty levels with games. Particularly, campaign games have this problem. I mean, Grail is a bit too hard. You have to house rule it a little bit. ISS Vanguard had a similar problem, like way too punishing. Unsettled is a very punishing game. If you try to do anything that constitutes fun, it will punish you for doing it. But even solo modes, the one that got a lot of contention lately was the White Castle.
I played that recently and got my ass handed to me.
Yes, solid enough game. I think we played it. I'm not sure if the two of us played it, but we played it.
Yeah, we played it side by side, didn't we?
Yeah, because I was unpacking it and I taught from the rule book. And
because I think you were more angry about the size of the box.
Yeah, because it wasn't. Yeah, because Devir Games can't give you a box big enough to pack their games. But
he was spitting teeth.
It was for that, but it's the Tetris thing. But White Castle solo mode, as you know, is ridiculously hard.
It is really hard,
and it doesn't feel like it's fair. It gets away with doing all this. Like, oh yeah, you've got to go through all these hoops to do A, B, and C. Well, I can just skip ahead to F. Not a problem. But you can have easy, medium, hard, but for some reason, even that translates to a designer as hell, 6-layer hell, 8th-layer of hell, or something. They're all just hell difficulties. And why do they feel that they need to basically make something super hard? You can have an easy solo mode, and then just have it be made harder. But the amount of times I pick up a book and see, like, right, there's several difficulty modes. You go on, and it's either you go on the easiest mode and it kicks your ass, or you have to go on the medium difficulty out of 5 because the bottom 2 are just no point. Like, you will just cakewalk everything. I know it's not easy to balance this kind of thing, but there's got to be a better way of doing it.
Well, one of the games I'm looking at UK Games Expo is Horror on the Orient Express, and I read an article about it, and the designers have said it is hard. You will lose most of the time.
But I don't want to. I want to win sometimes. When the challenge feels fair in a sense. I mean, Spirit Island's got 6 levels of difficulty with all their adversaries, and that's assuming you even play with an adversary. You could just play with, with like a normal scenario, and that will have its own difficulty rating. I know that if I'm playing Spirit Island True Solo, I pretty much avoid anything that is over difficulty 4, because I just struggle to beat the game at anything more than difficulty 4, especially when playing it True Solo. I'll play higher difficulties when I'm playing with other people, because chances are they'll be better at the game than I am. But it's easier when you have more spirits, usually. But at least that's got so many different levels of difficulty, I can tailor it to what I want. But something like White Castle is stupidly hard, end of.
Yeah, when it gives you because I played on easy, and then I thought, who the hell would play on the other difficulty levels? And how would you... I'm not even going to try it, because it would just be embarrassing.
I don't mind if you have like a cakewalk difficulty in a sense, but as I say, easy should be cakewalk, medium should be normal, and then you can make it tough and put some little variants in it. I played the Great Western Trail New Zealand's solo mode recently, and that's got a pretty decent solo mode in it. It's not difficult to pilot, and it produces enough of a challenge if you play it, I think, on the standard mode. You can play it on a slightly easier mode, but ideally you want to play it on standard. But there's multiple ways that you can make it harder from that point. Right. And I've got to a point where it's reached that stage of, oh, actually, this isn't enjoyable hard. Because you have like a deck of cards for the AI, and you've got 2 ways to tweak the difficulty. You've got a starting point for these discs where they start off and accumulate. So that's the better way to make it harder. The other way is that it trims certain cards out of the deck. But the problem is, when you go onto the higher difficulties, once you've trimmed out all the cards on the hardest difficulty, all it leaves you with is a bunch of bland, uninteresting cards that just say the AI gets to cheat, basically. Because you can specialize in this, and so can the AI, and it will say, like, right, here's a card, and if they're specialized in sailors, they'll do this. If not, they'll do this. They're interesting cards. Those get trimmed out in the higher difficulties, and at that point, you're basically saying, right, it doesn't matter what the AI specializes in. They're just going to hoover up the board, try and beat it. And I've played it, and it's too hard. I don't know. Just let me win some games. And the argument always comes back to say, like, well, don't you want a challenge? You can't win all the time. It's like, no, but I like to feel like I'm in with a fighting chance.
Yeah. I'd like to win by a couple of victory points type thing, or lose by a couple. But when you're getting hammered every single time, that's nice.
Well, even if I get hammered, I don't mind if I get hammered. I mean, up to a point. If I feel like, well, there was no way I could have physically beat that, and you find out only at the end you got hammered, that's a bit annoying. But yeah, I just want, like, during the game, let me feel like, right, I can do this. I irked that bit. Right, this is not going well, but I still feel I can. Spirit Island's great for this, and so Sentinels. You play Sentinels in the multiverse, halfway through the game, you could be like, all right, how the hell are we supposed to win this? But then as you get more powerful, you start building it back, you get your defenses up, and suddenly it's like, no, we can actually hold out here. You may still lose, but whilst you've got that fighting chance, you're still interested in playing the game. As soon as you realize there is no physical way we can win this scenario, a la Pandemic Legacy, for example, you could have a setup where literally there is no way you could win. The cards will just hose you. The objective you want's at the bottom of the deck, and you're just not going to do it. And that doesn't feel fun once that realization, dawns on you. What's he got in there? Similar thing to this, I think the difficulty levels for Marvel Champions are getting daft. Yeah, there's power creep. That in CCGs?
Right, so
that term?
Yeah, so people play it so regularly, they know the game at the back of their hand and the cards in the deck, so they win more regularly, so they make them harder as the game goes on, so new players get stumped.
Yeah, that's I mean, CCGs did it with power creep, making cards stupidly powerful as new sets come out. The LCGs and Marvel Champions is an example, but I think all of them did this to an extent, Lord of the Rings and Arkham. When you play the later expansions, you can just tell that the difficulty curve is going up, and it's like, look, good for them. I still play it casually. I don't want, Ronan the Accuser to absolutely bludgeon my head with a sledgehammer every time I look at him, and it is getting annoying. But there's easy fixes. If you just had the difficulties about the same throughout the whole thing, you might make a boss character at the end of the campaign harder. Fine, they can play those ones. But because something like Marvel Champions has those modular sets that you throw in, they did it in the recent one, Age of Apocalypse. Up there, they released like a new standard modular set, because normally the basic standard's quite basic, so they've just thrown in a harder version. Well, why can't you do that? Why can't you just throw in harder versions of those ones that they can use in those decks? We don't have to use them, but now we have to play a campaign of something like Age of Apocalypse, and I don't know how difficult the heroes are in that one yet, but for example, what was it? Oh god, yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy one. It's like you get to a point in that where the fights you've got are just so stupidly hard, it isn't fun anymore. And I just want a chance. Just give me a chance. What's so wrong with that? Go for it.
This one, the game did rectify it with an expansion, but this game's out of print now. I used to play it a lot. It's a long game. It's Rune Wars from Fantasy Flight Games.
Cool, that's going back a bit.
Yeah, and I loved the game. It was brilliant. But the thing is what happened is you'd plan your turns, your strategy, you'd play really well for 4 or 5 hours, and then there'd be someone just goes, right, I've won. And that would, because there's no scoring system or anything in there. All the runes that they have to collect are hidden. So it's all hidden information. So you don't know who's winning at any one time. And it's a great game, but it's like, right, I've won. That's it. Game over. The expansion then put in.
So what's this specifically then? Is it like abrupt endings?
Yeah, abrupt endings. Yeah, it's things that you don't know when they're coming up. So. And I think Fallout was the same, the original before the expansion. I haven't played it, but I've seen a lot of comments on Fallout doing the same thing. And then
Yeah, because that one's mostly like quite random in how it works. But yeah, it does eventually just get to a point where it's like game over, win.
See, I love a Game of Thrones, and that has a sudden ending, but you can see the victory point. You can see how many castles people have got, so you know who's winning at any one time, and the likelihood of, so you know who to attack and who not to. And but with Rune Wars, that was the only downer for the game. The expansion, I said, has stopped that because they let you play extra turns after someone has reached the goal.
But then does that? But I mean, how many extra turns? I mean, does that
Well,
still?
I think you play the end of the year, so it's another 4 actions, which could have someone else win. But yeah, before it was just suddenly someone just says, right, I win. And then it was just a bit of a letdown, really.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
Hexabeast has put the original version of Fallout would run out before you have time to finish.
Atomic
I
Bonds.
thought it was also someone would just suddenly just win. You had planned ahead and then someone just goes, right, I've won.
It could have that one. I'm trying to think of the other examples where it's hidden to that extent. I mean, like some games finish abruptly when you kind of know they're getting to that point, but it can still feel a little bit anticlimactic. But certainly a hidden part. That's okay in a short game, I think. You know, Celestia has that. Yeah. Yes, Celestia is short.
5-hour game.
Yeah, not in a long game. Celestia is short. You play it for 45 minutes. Somebody reveals I've got 50 or more points. That's the end. You win. Great. But it was quick. You know, it's a race from the get-go. But to play 2 3-hour Euro and then somebody just do that, I'm not sure I can think of any specific other like game one. But it doesn't bother Kabuki Kid. So,
Yeah.
But I'm curious as to whether like a lot of people have problems with this, because I've heard it mentioned more often that some people do have problems with, you know, anticlimactic endings. And for a Euro game, it's usually better when it is like, oh, we're progressing up to a point, you know, or the rounds are starting to tick over, you know, now it's getting to the end, as opposed to, right, we're carrying on, almost like you're playing bingo, and you know, you're there sort of crossing off numbers until eventually somebody does just come out of nowhere and say, I've won. It's like, oh.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm curious on that one. I'd be curious to know if there's any more examples of games-wise. Okay, so 3. I had to swap my 3 and 4 around, but to be honest, they were pretty similar anyway. And I suppose it does space it out, because I mentioned on my 5th player one that I was going to in danger of overlapping with this particular pick. You know, and I've said, like, you know, I'm sick and tired of 5 players being added to a game just for the sake of having 5 players. That also works on the other extreme, where you put in a solo mode for the sake of having a solo mode in it. I like solo modes. I play a lot of games solo. I'm kind of forced to do it, but you know, just with the way my living situation. But it is getting a little bit annoying that when you look at a game and it says 1 to 4 players, and especially depending on what the game is, you have to just wonder to yourself, okay, how much thought went into that solo mode? Is this literally just there, again, to please a crowd who won't shut up when a game doesn't have solo modes in it? It's the most... Goal. Yeah, it's always the most commented thing on a Kickstarter project. You know, where's the solo mode? This ain't worth it. And it's like, well, either play some other solo games or get some more friends. I don't know. But, you know, it's find a way around it. It's a painful one. And the most recent review I did, where I commented on this one, now technically there is a solo mode that does work with this, but not the one that's in the book, which was the Moonrakers one. Moonrakers has this like digital one called Luminar. I've not tried it. That's apparently the best way to play solo, but
okay.
But you have to get it on. You have to download it on Steam. It's free or whatever, and work through this app. I will try it. I do want to try it. It sounds pretty cool.
I'll be good to hear your thoughts on that.
But the solo mode in the book is literally just, right, here's put a few cards out face up. This is what you can play with during a turn. Try and complete some projects. Now, that doesn't sound too bad, but the thing is that the game is a negotiation game, where most of this game is about talking with the other players, trying to get people on your side and all that. Who asked for a solo mode in a negotiation game? It kind of just sort of defeats the point, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And most of the time, a lot of these solo modes are that. Not quite as blatant as this example. I mean, this example had to be said just for how stupid it is that a solo mode was put in this. And, you know, the digital one is supposedly a better thing. You know, the idea that you play with these events that turn up and a little bit of a story in there, and it's like, okay, cool. You know, but I'll give it a shot and I'll let you know. But yeah, just like some games where it's beat your own score and it's just like, right, you can play this game with 2 to 4 players, but if you want to play it solo, then fine, just flip this tiny deck of cards over one at a time. It will take something out of the display, see what score you can beat. And it is just tacked on. There's no thought that went into it. It was just pleasing the solo mode. And most of the time, they're in the game, but nobody's suddenly crying out, oh yeah, this was a fantastic solo mode. I'm so glad I played this solo. It's like, no, I've got umpteen amount of games I can play solo that, you know, are either true solo or can be played with groups that are better with solo. But I don't need every single rotten game to have a solo mode in it, so cut it out. Especially when it then combines with the obscene difficulty levels and stuff like that. You know, so we didn't really take time to develop this solo mode. We just put it in to please you. Can you win it? No, but who cares? Do you play a lot of games solo?
I do, yeah. I do. Yeah, I do play a lot of games solo. I've got Moonrakers, and I admit that it was beat your own score as well, wasn't it? After a certain amount of rounds or something. Yeah, after playing it 5 players, which I thought was great, playing it solo was a bit of a disappointment, I think.
Even just played it at any of the player counts. 3 to 5. I mean, 5 takes a while. I prefer 4, but 3's still good. But yeah, the 2 players. Why? I mean, you negotiate with one other player, and then just the idea that the negotiation game had a solo mode doesn't make any sense. And I can't think of any other negotiation game that does that. Cosmic Encounter didn't. New Angeles doesn't. You know, I think most other people got it in their heads that the whole point of a group discussion game is that you play it as a group. What's he got? The worst thing when you put the mode in thinking no one's going to play solo anyway. Well, yeah, that's probably the thought process. It's like, oh god, these people on my Kickstarter page won't shut the hell up. Fine, I'll put a solo mode in. It's like you almost like have to come up with one in advance now. And for James, it would be his number 1. Yeah, play solo modes a lot, but some just seem tacked on. And it is, because it paints a bad picture for solo players, because it's coming up with all these different ways to play solo that just aren't that fun. But I can't play every single game in my collection if it was solo. It's not going to happen. I've got solo games that I want to play more often, and I simply can't just because of time. You know, I don't need any more. So I'm more interested to sort of go, right, these games I'm not going to touch solo ever again and focus on these other ones. Right, yeah, just 5th player for the sake of it, solo for the sake of it. It's same sort of thing. It's just a lot of these things that I come up with are... and I just realised that said number 4. Yeah, it was meant to be number 3, whatever. People know how to count. It's 3, but yeah, come on, just don't do it. Go for it. 2 left.
2. So this one really irked me, only because I got given a copy of the game to look at, and my head just imploded as why have you done this? So again, I've gone back to Steam Forged Games. So Dark Souls.
Ooh. It's getting a lot of punishment.
Yeah, so they did an updated version. They did two big box standalone games, and basically what they had done in each box was take out the enemies, put in some other ones, and literally split the main box, the first game, in half. So it was actually 2 halves of a game.
Right. Isn't that more of a publisher thing, though?
Well, it's the rules as well. And so they had one of the rules in the original was that if you were being attacked, if you were a tank, you could choose to defend or evade, but you would obviously defend using your armor. If you were sort of like a thief or something, you would look to evade. But the thing is that it was risky, because evading meant if you did it correctly, you would take no damage at all. If you failed your evade, you would get hit with everything. Whereas if you defended with your armor, the likelihood is you'd take a little bit of damage, but not too much. So you had to risk what you were going to do. In the new version, they changed the rules that you roll all the dice for evade and defend, look at the result, and then choose what you wanted.
But so what exactly is this point then? I'm just trying to...
Doing a new version of a game, but making the rules worse.
So what, like re-implementations that don't work? I'm sort of like
Yeah.
trying to summarize it in one, because I thought it was splitting up your game, but that doesn't quite work.
No, not split. It was just changing the rules, changing the rules for a game that was already quite broken anyway. But
Yes.
they made them a lot worse, and and it was quite frustrating. And the thing they did as well that was really frustrating is that they don't tell you that these 2 new games aren't compatible with everything else they've done. So a newcomer would grab everything. They're £100 a game, and you've got no idea that the 50 quid expansions are not compatible with these. And that was a big mistake, I think.
Over that, I like the fact that like some of the comments are like going on about, could number 2 just be Steam Forge game? Well, I did just put Dark Souls there as a joke. So this game has enough.
I like the game, but I really don't like the new versions. I think they've completely spanned the rules.
I don't think you like any version of the game that's done by the designer, though. I think you like the fan variants.
The fans, yeah. But they
ever-changing rules,
and they were great. And then they went, actually, what these fans have done for the past 5 years, we're going to ignore and make up another rule set that's weak. So yeah, this is so going back to the solo video. I don't know if I understand this about wanting no solo instead of a bad one. Can you not ignore it? But the thing with that is that development time is limited on a game. Somebody had to put time to right, I'm going to write this extra bit of the rules or do this solo mode because everyone asked to. The time they spend doing that is time they could have spent refining the element that does work. And they can be and it can even be more costly to do that, because somebody might go, right, well, I can't think of a solo mode, so let's get Turksy or somebody else to just make a solo mode for me. And then that costs money, takes time, gets put in, and this is time that could have been spent doing other stuff. So that's where I'd go with that. But what other game has ever-changing rules? I mean, or I suppose, is it a Kickstarter thing? Because I don't do a lot of that anymore. Or is it just Dark Souls? There is a game, actually, where the rule book's online. And it gets updated all the time. Which one's that?
Ooh, I mean, that could work for something like the LCGs, where you've got like a errata list and taboo list. That always gets on my nerves.
I can't remember which one it was. I can't remember. But with making new updated versions as well. So I used to play Warhammer Underworlds. The little small boxed 2-faction.
Shadespire and all that, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I went to tournaments and I was doing all right and I really enjoyed it. But what they would do in the tournaments is every time Games Workshop released a new expansion, the oldest one become obsolete. And so all your cards and things just were completely obsolete. And it was just, you had to keep buying. I bought it thinking Warhammer in a 30 quid box. Brilliant. And then you end up spending loads of money if you want to compete.
That does happen with a few of the CCG ones as well, where the meta changes so much that a lot of your earlier stuff is just kind of obsolete. Yeah. It's like, well, hang on, this was fine now, but I don't know if I want it like that.
Yeah.
That's an odd one, but hopefully his number one's not to do with Dark Souls, because I didn't want to rag on one specific game. I've tried to spread the love with the games that I'm using as examples, but I swear like his is just targeted. All that. All right, this one. I mean, name any Splotter game and this would work, but I swear there's probably a lot of other games where this would happen. In fact, I mean, stuff like Blood on the Clock Tower actually suffers from this now and again, but, Splotter Euro games have this issue. It's worse than long games, but I mentioned with like solo modes now, you want to feel like you've got a fighting chance throughout the game. Because otherwise, if you're just there for 4 hours playing through the motions, where's the fun? The term, which I don't know who pioneered it or so, but it's called pseudo knockout. And it's essentially like saying, you're not eliminated from the game, but you might as well have been. Because at this point, you have no physical chance to win. You will never pull it back. It's not going to happen. But you are there. Good luck, you better keep joining in. And I mentioned Blood on the Clock Tower because that's got the idea that, if you die early, you can't just get up and walk away. You're stuck there still doing stuff. And it's like, well, hang on, I died. I don't want to stick around for a bit. But Splotter games, especially this one, the bane of my freaking life, this horrible game. I know it's got its fans, but...
It's 5 players as well.
Yeah, 5 players. Who plays this with 5? Oh dear God, it's already like a 4-hour game. I mean, look at that, 120 to 240. I've never seen a game of this take less than 3 hours. But with Food Chain Magnate, and I've suffered from this because I've tried to give it a chance and it fails miserably. I mean, I already have to get past these aesthetics, but the game, their design standpoint is if you can't lose on the first turn, what's the point of a first turn? I don't get what they were smoking when they came up with that because it does not work. But this game has that problem in spades where if you don't start in a particular way, like you've got maybe 1 or 2 ways that you must start this game,
Right.
if you try to deviate from that, you will lose. Like you're never going to pull it back. Your income will be too low. You won't get a decent enough like setup or anything, but you can't leave. And this game won't end for another 4 hours. So I already know as I play this that I've done something wrong at the start, and now my start is so bad, I'll never pick it back up. But I can't get out. I have to just go through the motions. Like, what do I do? Do I help this player? Do I king make this one? Am I trying to beat my own score? I don't know. You lose all incentive to carry on, as well as you lose any sense of an objective. Because your normal objective is to win, or at least do well. But that's not going to happen anymore. A decent game should have the idea that, as I say, you have a fighting chance throughout. Yeah, you might fall back. So maybe you think you're not going to win, but you never know. Something could happen that could pull you back. And, I mean, you'll notice this with, hegemony, that can have that effect at times. But even, games where you've got the scoring at the end. I mean, Earth's a good example. If you play Earth, the scoring is so vast when you get to the end that, you'd be surprised how close the scores could be, or where somebody wins and you didn't realize it. That's good because then you find out at the end when that happens. But I must admit, I'm not seeing this happen as often as I used to. I think there was a phase when I played some of these Splotter games and some of these bigger Euros, like Power Grid's another one. Like, if you do badly in Power Grid, like a couple of auctions or something, then good night, sweet prince. You ain't gonna pull it back ever again. And I just got sick and tired of this mechanic being a forefront of the game, but I don't see it too often in modern designs. I think that maybe designers have got wise to it now, or have done better at hiding it. That's what I would think. I mean, have you come across this?
No, not really. Not in the games I play. The only time I have players that are left behind and struggling is because one of my friends, we just literally have to carry through most of the games we play because he just doesn't get any of the rules that we play. But that's on him, not the game.
Yeah, and there are occasions when it can be, I mean, I mentioned Hegemony doesn't often have that problem. We did have one game of it where somebody who was a capitalist was doing so badly that there was no chance they could win. Like, no chance. But granted, they were playing stupendously badly. Like, I've never seen anybody play the capitalist class that badly. Even players who have not played the game before. So we'll see. Yeah, depending who plays that. But I don't think you could do worse than this player. I swear he got something like 20-something points. That is quite an achievement to have that low a score. Right? Because everything just...
Someone's asked a question that I was going to ask. How do you feel about the catch-up mechanics? End of the round, if you're losing, you get X amount of money or points or something.
I don't mind that as long as it doesn't negate a reason for winning. Because, in fact, good example of that. I brought out Isle of Skye last night at the game club. I said on my last Keep or Coal one, that I wanted to get this one out, and I'm glad I did because I realised just how solid it is, and it will stick around. But Isle of Skye's got a catch-up mechanic with the money income. If I can find a picture of the player board, I'll show you. But the central board. But essentially, is that good enough? You can only barely see it. But at the top there, these little money values on the round. When you get your income, for every player marker that's ahead of you on the score track, you get a certain amount of money back. And that's a decent catch-up mechanic. But we had that in the game. The people who were at the back a lot didn't win. They still came third and fourth, despite the fact that they were getting this money, but at least they had something to do. They didn't feel like they were getting punished too badly. And, I mean, the person who was ahead on the score track more often, like for most of the game, still won it. Only by a few points. I was only like about 4, 5, 6 points behind him. But I was like second, maybe third occasionally on the track, but most of the time I wasn't getting a huge amount of money from it. And so it's a catch-up mechanic in a sense. Like, it gives you a chance to do something.
Yeah.
You've still got to make use of it, but this one doesn't feel overpowering. Now, there are some cases where, you know, Lenekin has a point. Yeah, the catch-up mechanic can be so powerful that I forget, like, some card games I've seen where, like, the person in last place gets a particular card, like a dragon card in a trick-taking game or something like that. But that dragon card might be so ultra powerful that it's like everybody wants that card. So why are you trying to win at that stage? And yeah, I mean, that can be just as bad. Although, I mean, I've seen way more examples of pseudo knockout than I have catch-up mechanics, period. Let alone catch-up mechanics that overpower the need to win. I certainly wouldn't say no to an example of that to sort of prove me wrong, but yeah, I mean, I can't think of a case of it. Not something for yours?
No, I can't think of any.
Or do catch-up mechanics have no effect on you? I don't I'm doing badly. I'm doing badly. That's it. So it's just like, we know we've accepted our fate. There is no catch-up mechanic that can help. But I'm just curious as I look at it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Can't think of one. No, the catch-up mechanics do not advertise themselves as much anymore. You know, I used to see them occasionally, but now I think a lot of the designers are just probably because they're going down this route of everything's got to be harder or more punishing in their games. It's like now they're just saying, look, if you're losing, you're losing. Deal with it. You know, cry me a river. It does seem to be that way. All right. Well, what can possibly be any worse than what we just said?
Right. So
does it end in souls?
No. But picture this: you are playing a long competitive game for 5 or 6 hours. You've done everything right. You've conquered land. You've got loads of resources. You are sure you're victorious, and then hidden victory point tokens get revealed, and some lucky bugger picks all the highest, randomly picked the highest. So it was Eclipse Second Dawn.
Oh god, I hate that game. But yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and I did everything right. I had loads of territory. I'd taken the center, and I was sure of victory. And all my battles have been really difficult as well, so I kind of really earned them. But then this other guy just flicked over his victory point. He was getting fours, and I was just like, "There's only a few in the game. How come we've got them all?" And I lost. I lost because of that, and it was random. That's what frustrated me. And I just don't. Other games do it as well, and it's.
Totally with you. Yeah, that is. I mean, to be fair, I could come up with a long list of stuff I hate in Eclipse, but there's a lot of RNG elements in Eclipse that do bug me, and there's a lot of random elements in it, that included, and it is kind of crazy like that because other games have it, and I don't mind it too much in a short game. You play something like Jaipur, you can get those point tokens, and they range from like 7 to 9, 4 to 6, or whatever.
Yeah,
that's a luck factor, but it's Jaipur. It's a simple, tiny little 2-player game. They could have done it better. They could have just made it fixed, but you know what the hell? It's a tiny one. But I've seen these in some of these bigger games, and why would you include a random element like that?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is the whole? I mean, I know the game has dice, but they are based on your choice of weapon. The Blood Bowl Team Manager has them as well, but I don't mind it in that because the game is chaotic anyway. It's a chaotic, random, fun game. But when you spend hours playing and you lose just by someone picked a random token than you, it was quite frustrating. That was.
It makes sense on that one, because I've seen. Because this one is not like, if it said, "Oh yeah, this is meant to be a little silly, fun space game," it's not. It's a super serious Euro game about balancing your checkbook in space. It's not, meant to be a silly, stupid thing. So why these RNG mechanics are thrown in there? Stuff, even not just victory point tokens, like random exploration tokens have that problem as well. Where Twilight Imperium, I think, has got like, this one could blow up your ship, this one could give you extra resources. Well, there's a bit of a disparity between the two, and you get given them at random. I try to think of other hidden VP ones. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of examples. I have seen this crop up, and it rarely gets anybody going, "Oh yeah, I'm excited to see what your hidden random tokens do."
Yeah, I mean, if they were revealed, you could gauge who's winning, and you know who to kind of like hunt down. But because it's random, I was I was getting attacked just because I had more area than anybody else, or more locations, and the central location. And I just thought, well, that's fair because I'm winning. And then when they revealed the tokens, I was like, how is that possible? That's
I want to figure there's, the fact that I'm forgetting some of these games as examples is that because they're just not coming to the top of my head. But yeah, the random victory point tokens. I'm sure there's other examples. Maybe the commenters can hurt, but yeah, that's
there's other things as well. It's not just the random ones. It's things like games that have so many ways you can get victory points at the end of the game. You lose complete track of them during the game. So at the end, you've got like a list of 20 points. Nine Worlds does that quite well, where they've got a huge list of how you get victory points, and you can never keep up with that in the game. You could never look at anyone and think who's winning.
Well, I mean, that's not necessarily a too bad a thing, because then have you played Earth yet?
No.
Oh, wow, okay, that's interesting, because Earth's got like about 10 different things you end up scoring for, and scores can be anywhere between like 150 to 300 or something on typical games, so they do vary quite a lot. So technically you don't see what you're scoring until the end. You've got an idea. You can see somebody's got a lot of trees or a lot of sprout cubes or whatever and go, oh yeah, that's worth a decent amount of points. But because there's so many different elements, you would not be able to necessarily go, oh yeah, that person's definitely won. But when scoring up, I don't get that feeling you get from Eclipse with it to say, oh, that was just random points. It's like, well, it wasn't random. You earned every point on that list. But obviously you didn't necessarily know that they had 40 more points than you until you actually started adding things up. But
can the points be quite varied in Earth then? Can you get quite a varied score?
Oh, good, yeah. I mean, the points can vary quite a bit because it is like a sort of bit of a point salad at the end of the day. But nothing is hidden scoring. I mean, if you wanted to, you could go to somebody's player board, unwrap it all and see, right, you've got this many points at the moment. But obviously you wouldn't. There's no need.
Yeah.
But you don't get a random token in Earth that says X points. If you got 20 points from an objective card, it's because you have exactly what is necessary to get those 20 points.
That's fine. Yeah, it's as you said, those hidden random ones that doesn't matter. You both do the same thing. It's just whoever picked that one out the bag.
I forgot that game had it. As soon as you mentioned it, it's like, oh god, yeah, I'll add it to the list.
It's a strange thing. Such a heavy, complex, and sort of like long game to have that silly random element in.
All these people, it's like, oh yeah, look at my super strategic Eclipse game. And it's like, yeah, the amount of randomness in that game. I mean, I'm surprised most Euro gamers are opposed to luck. And even I'm like, in long games, I don't want loads of luck in my long games. Which I must admit, I suppose my number one is actually not too dissimilar to that, actually. We'll carry on this conversation because you actually, despite actually being the equivalent of a crossover, yours is very specific. You're talking about hidden sort of random victory points and that. Mine is similar. I'm just broadening it up a bit. I'm just talking about random elements in the long game. And it's not so much the victory point scoring. It's more that you've got this Euro game that's clearly meant to be a serious Euro game. It's got complexity. It's going to take a good 3+ hours to play. It's clearly not a silly, fun, lucky game. But then one aspect of it has to have some push your luck mechanic or some random element that is so swingy in its nature that it pretty much does decide what happens with other players. Septima is probably the worst contender I've had for this lately.
I like that.
Because of that trial mechanic. And I'll say, I played it with 3 mates of mine. We love Mind Clash games. Well, sort of. Their recent stuff, not so much. But we love like Tricarion and Acrony. We've got those 2 high up in our list. But I showed them Septima because I wanted to get it played. All of us bounced off it, that particular game. But one person in particular hated the trial mechanic so much, it pretty much killed the game for her ever wanting to play it again. Like, she could not say anything else apart from just how bad this was. But it had that thing because it's push your luck. You spend this whole game trying to be strategic with what you do and what your witch is at, but there's only 4 rounds or something like that, or like not 5. There's very few rounds in the game.
Yeah, it's
and
short,
these and getting these witches is essential because you need them to score the points off your big divination card.
Hard to get the witches, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got spaces for 4 of them, but trying to get any is an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
But to have this thing where in that same game, because this is push your luck, it's draw stuff out of a bag and see what happens. Blatantly, she had more stuff in the bag than I did. Like, I wasn't caring about the witch and that. I still beat her on the first witch. And then the second time, when clearly it should have been her because I would have lost those characters, somehow we just drew in such a way that I still won it. Like, I won 2 witches in a row, and I clearly should not have done. But even though she had more stuff in there, like she'd spent all that time prepping for it, she gets nothing from it. And this is like a 3-hour odd, like, Euro game. You know, and your Eclipse is a similar thing, you know, because it's not just the victory points in that. It doesn't have, like, technology you get randomly and sort of bits like that. I forget this.
If you when you draw your tiles, you can get some really good tiles. So you can like earn a piece of technology from a tile in Eclipse, whereas someone else draws a tile and they'll get 2 bad guys.
Always a play with that. And apparently there's a variant for the trial. Possibly, but again, this goes back to well, I'm not aware of what this variant is. Maybe it was a official one on there. But it's just like, well, if it's a variant, why didn't you design your game to be better without the variant in it? Because surely in playtesting that must have come up as like a potential thing. But I swear people are just very accepting of these random parts. And card draw luck can be a problem as well. Because, I mean, I love Art Nova. I'm not like oblivious to the fact that there is an element of card draw luck, but I'd argue that I have won more games of Art Nova than I've lost. So even with some of that bad luck, I am still able to do something with what cards I get. You know, it's like, right, I was hunting monkeys. Well, monkeys have all dried up now. Well, you know what? That's still a good card there. That's still something there. You know what? I can try something else. It may not work, but at least there's an option. But some of the other long ones, Wonderland, was it? Not. What's the one? Wonderland's War. There's another one. Yeah, it's basically a longer version of Quacks of Quedlinburg. You know, you're just drawing stuff out of the bag. That's not a short game. This game takes a good 2 hours plus to finish, like 2.5 hours to get people to finish it. And the whole game is basically push your luck. You know, like round of the bag. So you're just playing 2.5 hours of luck. Talisman, you know, who remembers that? Like, that old game. Yeah, it's just roll and move, but you play it for 6 hours. Yeah. So why am I playing it for 6 hours odd? I'm trying to think of I know there was like some other better examples that I've had lately. Oh, actually, Dune Imperium is another one of those. You know, Dune Imperium is not a short game by any means, particularly when you play it with, you know, 4 players or with expansions. But Dune Imperium is at its heart a deck building game, and deck building is already quite a luck based mechanic. But then you play something like Dominion, Star Realms, or, you know, stuff like that. It's a short game. Lost Ruins of Arnak is a longer game, but I feel like you can do a bit more with your deck, or you see more of it. Dune Imperium, you don't go for your deck that many times. You only buy so many cards because you've only got so many points you grab. But because, you know, when you buy a card, you might not see it appear for that long. Dune Imperium's also got very critical turns. Like, I know somebody's going to block me out of this, or screw me out of this combat, or screw me out of this faction token. I need to go to this spot, draw my 5 cards. Oh, I've got none of those triangle spaces. I can't physically go to those spaces. I can't do anything to stop you. And, you know, after a 3-hour game of Dune Imperium, to have, like, critical turns at the end just messed up because of a bad luck draw.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like Dune Imperium, but yeah, it's frustrating when because normally the games we play end quite closely, but you draw a hand of cards and you've got not one of where you need to go. Maybe you need to go up the, you know, to get that token off the side.
Faction tracks, yeah.
Yeah, and you just don't have those because they're quite limited anyway.
But
you don't have it. It's frustrating.
Because, like, even with some of the ones that Arnak, you know, if you don't get the best cards, there's usually something you can do with other bits. And in Arnak, your worker placement is not tied to the cards in your hand other than just the boot or car symbol. But there's still good places for you to go regardless, or there's stuff that doesn't even require you to put your dudes out. Dune Imperium has to have you put your agents out. Yeah. And it's critical what cards you get on there. I like the way Kabuki says 6 hours for Talisman. Yeah, granted, that's a underestimate. It does go on much longer than 6 hours. Particularly when you throw everything in, but that is just kind of insane. What we got? So, yeah, I mean, Art Nova, Terraforming Mars, Everdell, huge deck of cards which makes them reactive. In a sense, yeah, you have to adapt with what comes out of the deck, and that's why I kind of, not so much Terraforming Mars, but I've warmed up more to it. Everdell, similar, but, you know, Art Nova, yes, there is an element of draw luck, but if it was just luck of the draw, I wouldn't be winning most of my games of Art Nova. You know, there clearly has to be an element of what you do with what you're given. that works with it. Even Earth has that. You know, you burn through a ton of cards in Earth, but the idea isn't that, you know, you might draw a really good card. It can happen, but the game's an hour long, you know, an hour, 10 hour, 20 minutes, whatever. But at the end of the day, you burn through so many cards. The idea of being good at Earth is that you can take a hand of 10 cards and immediately sort of go, right, those are good, that's better than that. Those 4 are trash, right, they get composted, I'm going to keep these, and being able to separate your hand like that. It's not that, oh, I've drawn 10 fantastic cards. You only play 16, so you can't have everything. You got to pick your battles. So, yeah, I mean, there's a million examples of these ones, and that doesn't necessarily mean that if you remove all the randomness from the game, it's now brilliant, because then you get stuff like Food Chain Magnate, which still sucks. But it's it's not, removing all the luck doesn't automatically make the game fantastic, but you know, it's got to, if you are going to throw a random element in a long game, it's got to be mitigatable or not so swingy. You know, make it a small event, like a price market. A price market that doesn't swing ridiculously. Yeah. You know, it's going to adjust every round. Something will be high, something will be low. It might suck, but at least it's not a case of, right, next round I'd rather that wood wasn't expensive, and then a roll of a die happens and suddenly wood is like twice as much. You know, you don't want it to be a crazy swing. You just want it to be a little bit of a nuisance. You know, something that you could prepare for. You can't really prepare in September, for example, for having such a bad draw on a trial that you just don't get any witches.
Yeah, especially when you've played all your actions to get those meeples into that area.
It did work there. So, yeah, I don't like, you know, I like some randomness, just, you know, in the right state.
Wasn't there a game ages ago where you would roll a die to see how many actions you took that turn?
I don't know.
D12 or D20 or something?
I don't know the game you're on about, but in old Dice Tower Top 10 lists, Z mentions this game a few times, and yes, you rolled a D10 or something.
I don't know.
And that was how many actions you got. But, yeah, I think it was a D10, but even then, rolling a D10 for actions is a stupid thing, but I think that's quite an old game, or at least maybe an old indie game. So no designer these days would be stupid enough to attempt that. There was
another game I played where you had a set amount of actions and you rolled a D6, but it became a D3 to add actions. I can't remember what it was. I'm sure I can't remember. I have to think. I'll look back through my stats and see which game I'm sure you added. Yeah, you rolled die and you added actions to your standard. You had 4 to start with, and you rolled a die to add a few more. I'll have a think.
Trying to think on that one. Right, right. Before wrapping this up, because those ones did go on there. Right, everyone in the comments, come on. I want to hear some of your quirks, some of your annoying designer quirks, because we've done 10 each. We crossed over slightly, you know, unofficially on those, but I swear there's more. There was certainly more on, I think, the short list on there. I mean, I suppose like while they get their brains in gear, did you have a couple extra, like 11 and 12?
I'm just having a look now at my list. I think I might have. Yeah, one of them was trading card games as a whole.
That's not a designer quirk. That's just you hate a genre. I wouldn't have counted. I cried foul. Making things overly complex, I think, was one I took off the list, because I don't mind a complex game every again and again, but somebody mentioned like David Turksey earlier, and it's like David Turksey's a nice bloke, and I swear he puts up with a lot of crap from me and does very well. He's a very tolerant person, but a lot of his solo modes are very complex, and I get to the point where it's a bit too much. But even some games, you know, like unrelated to David, you know, there are some games that come out and it's just like everything in the kitchen sink. I mean, Revive was one of those. Revive was okay, but it had its problems. But man, does it just throw everything in there that it physically could.
Does that just chuck every single mechanical, every single...
It feels like it's got like a bit of everything. It's like a mixture of all sorts, because it's bone dry. There's no real theme in it at all. But, you know, you've got the tracks around the board, then you've got like a card, a little deck buildy thing, then you've got the action slots, then you've got, you know, tokens that you can grab, and then you've got a map that you move around and build stuff on. It's like, Jesus Christ, it is a kitchen sink worth of stuff. I don't think there's many others. Too long in general. Yeah, I mean...
I don't mind long games. I mean, we played Game of Thrones for 12 hours once, and I'd do it again.
No, I'd rather watch season 8
Oh no, that's a lie.
I would. I'd rather watch season 8 than play 12 hours of a game. Any game, no game is 12 hours worthy. Even our hegemony one is meant to be 4. Okay, so I'm doing that for 12. But yeah, there wasn't much else on the short list. Right, what else have we got? Going back to that old point. Yeah, I think Destiny's the bad game. Yeah, well, I think I gave it a 6 out of 10 when I first reviewed it, but I think I was being a bit lenient then. And this was before I solidified what my rating system was. So 6 then probably might have translated to 4 now. But yeah, I was not a fan there.
I saw one there from Christoph. It's trying to play Europa Universalis. Now I have that unpunched. I bought that at last UK Games Expo.
Mark has it. I would like to play it, but I am so not buying it and learning it myself. It's like
is it true? It's like 15-hour games or something, or is it played over scenarios? Or
I think it's like how big you make the game. I'm not sure, but like I say, it looks way too much for anybody normal to sort of jump into. But it seems like one of those games I should try. I'm just going in order in here. So what have we got? So misses on dice. I prefer the Street Masters idea where the misses are That's a good point, actually. Too Many Bones kind of does this, but I don't think they're as good in Too Many Bones. Street Masters has a cool thing that you are running around, you're trying to hit people. It's Streets of Rage miniature style, really good. But if you do miss, you effectively get a charge icon that charges up your super move. So, so it's all well and good. It's like, I'm punching the bad guy, and it's like, I've had a couple of misses, I'm taking a bit of damage. But because I've taken the damage, I'm charging myself up to suddenly do spinny flurry kick or whatever. I mean, they're like Street Fighter stuff. So it's like partially fantastical street fighting type thing. But then at least missing is not the end of the world in that. But it is, pretty. What? Sorry,
we played Stronghold.
Is that the 2-player game where you got like Siege of Castle? I've not. I don't get 2 players to the table very often.
No, that has a really good hit and miss mechanic for their catapult. So you have a big deck of cards for each individual machine, and a lot of them at the start of the game are misses. And as you draw a card, if it's a hit, you do your damage and you put the hit card back in. If it's a miss, you don't do anything, but the miss card disappears. So you gradually thin the deck out. I think that's a really good mechanic for so it's like you're getting your aim in almost. I played the version before that. That's the newer version, I think.
Yeah, that's Undead. There was a second edition. Well, it was the first one I clicked on. But yeah, I mean, it's a game I would try, but it's 2-player only, so they're ones I don't tend to go for unless they're short and quick, like Seven Wonders Duel. But I like that thematically works.
Yeah, as well as I thought that was really nice mechanic for the action.
But yeah, I mean, Imperial Assault, Gloomhaven, and a lot of these ones will have misses on cards, and yeah, I mean, you could just draw really badly and get
I
misses.
Played Imperial Assault. And what I found is it doesn't matter where you were on the board, you always got hit by something. You couldn't hide behind terrain. It just seemed that the way the terrain was brought out, you always got hit.
Terrain made no difference because it was so easy to hit things like line of sight.
Yeah, exactly.
Too Many Steps for a Bot. I hate to say the name again, but yeah, Turksy. If you ever want to have too many steps for a bot, play what was that 3-hour point salad Euro, the one that had the anime feel, Batoku. And he admits he admits it's not his best solo mode, which is fine, but he makes complex solo modes. It's going to happen, but you want to but God blimey, you want to play this game and talk about too many steps for a bot. The thing's got about like 10-12 steps on a giant flowchart or something. I could not fathom it to save my life. I tried to play it solo, and I just felt like I was going to have to spend an hour a turn just understanding what this wretched bot did. It's just like, that went way too far. We've got overly complex endgame goals. What ones in particular? I mean, can you think of anything like that? Overly complex. I mean, what would be complex? I mean, are we talking like where you get like a set of endgame objectives that you got to do, and there's like one that's, get 4 tiles, and the other one requires you to get like 4 tiles, 2 dreadnoughts, 3, spheres of whatever, and like, and £1 million or so, like they're way too disparate. Who knows? 12 hours. Yeah, Kabuki can't believe you played Game of Thrones for 12 hours. To be fair, I don't know how you
That was
played that for 12
That was
hours. But
player as well.
8-player. Did everyone know the game?
Yes. Yes.
Still 12 hours. Oh, God.
Yeah, we are very tactical when it comes to that game. Yeah, a lot of table talk.
At least if I watch season 8, I get some good acting. It's something to keep me engaged, even if the story sucked. What have we got? Yeah, I played shorter diplomacy games. Oh, God. Yeah, that is true. What else have we got? Do we got any more? Caving into popular commercial demand and not sticking to your design idea. I mean, I suppose that links with the one you talked about earlier where the rules kept changing.
Yeah.
But also I suppose it links to a couple I've done where I said, like, you know, we put in a 5th player or solo player for the sake of it because everybody keeps crying for one. And I can't think of examples, but I know I have seen the occasional Kickstarter project where the designer has come out and said, I know you're all asking for it, but I'm not putting in a 5th player or a solo mode. You know, I have decided that it doesn't work. I can't think of a good one. Maybe in the future, but for now, we're not putting it in the game. Fair play to you. If you're willing to like come out and just state that and stick to your guns, that gets a brownie point.
That game I said with the living rule book, was it Soulforge? That was online, wasn't it? You
tell me.
Well, didn't you?
No, I didn't. Oh wait, Soul. SOL for God, that game. Yeah, I got so much shtick for that from fanboys. That was I wish I never reviewed that game. The game itself was okay. I wasn't that bowled by. I mean, it's basically just another Magic clone with some extra tweaks. But the thing
had an online rule book that was forever changing. Because I remember I sold my copy and someone complained there was no rule book, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot. I was like, oh no, it's online.
There isn't one, yeah. And I was thinking about that. You open it and it's got like a crappy paper mat, a bunch of cards, but no rule book. And and I tried to read it on my phone. My tablet was charging, so that you cannot do it on your phone. But it's just like, I'm sorry, there's no excuse for putting a rotten rule book in your game, people. And people were giving me shtick saying, like, you know, it's fine, it's online. It's like, what? Everybody's okay with this?
I printed it. I needed a paper copy.
Yeah, but it's like, for crying out loud, the basic rule book, because
it's live.
Well, Magic's got this problem because Magic the Gathering doesn't put a rule book in its starter decks anymore. It expects you to go online and find it or be taught it, you know, by osmosis or something. It just doesn't work. But it's almost, I don't want games to go the way of computer games. Because do you remember, like, in the back of the days, you actually felt really good when you opened up a physical disc and you got a little booklet inside?
Yeah.
And then you got the rule book, and then it got to a point where you didn't get the booklet, but you at least had some rules, or it was just a disc. Now you're lucky enough to get the disc, and now it's all digital. So rule books don't exist in a computer game. I don't, you know, it expects you to go into the game and learn it through a tutorial or something. I do not want board games to start making us go to online sources, because casual people don't do online stuff all the time. You know, if I buy a game for my parents, they're not going to go online and read a rule book. No. You know, in their 70s, it's not going to happen. Making a roll and write version of every game. Oh, I mean, preaching to the choir, I just don't know if that's a designer or a publisher thing. I suppose it's a designer because they've got to come up with the rules for it. But I wonder if it's also egging by a publisher. You know, does somebody make a game and they go, oh, your Alhambra game was fantastic, mate. We want to sell more. We just want to sell more stuff and make money, though. Can you turn it into a roll and write and make it one that doesn't work very well? But yeah, I must admit, I'm sick and tired of these roll and writes that spawn.
Twilight Imperium one. Have you played that roll and write?
Can't get it out.
What did you think of that?
It's stuck in there with my Marvel Champions stuff. Yeah, Twilight Inscription.
Yeah.
It's, as ideas go, it's crazy. Like, it really shouldn't work, or like, I do have to wonder what you were smoking when you thought, let's turn Twilight Imperium into a roll and write. But to be honest, I actually kind of enjoy it. I've still got it. There's a lot to learn. I certainly would never play it with more than 3 players, and honestly, I just don't think I would play it more than solo, because I think the solo works fine in it. But as roll and writes go, it gives you a lot to do, a lot of choices, and it looks cool, it's well produced in that. So yeah, probably a dumb, crazy idea, but I actually still enjoyed it. It's one of my more preferred roll and writes. I think it did end up on my top 10 list, but cool, blimey, I know the feeling, like turning everything into a roll and write, especially I don't mind sometimes because Longshot, Longshot the dice game is such a really cool game. Nobody has played Longshot for ages. I'd never played the original. I mean, the original Longshot came out in 2003, and then maybe again in 2009 or something. So it's not like it was the hotness, and all of a sudden it got a roll and write. But this roll and write's a really good one. But it's just when you do get like a, Isle of Cats has done it, Dinosaur Island have done it. These games have not been out that long, and all of a sudden you've now got Roar and Write in the, whatever the Isle of Cats one was, and they're always daft names as well. Like doing puns and things like that. That always does my head in, because again, when it happens so soon after a game gets released, Cascadia's now doing it. The 2 roll and writes for that. I couldn't care less. Cascadia is one of the best gateway games there is. I don't need a roll and write version of it. It just feels like, these games won't be that good. They're not going to be great roll and writes, but it's got the word Cascadia on it, therefore you'll buy it, won't you? That's kind of how it works. Too many different ways to win the game. 5 different ways to win the game just makes it too overwhelming. I mean, 5's a bit extreme, but
I played I played a game recently. It's a finished game. It's designed, published, and everything. But it's going to Kickstarter for its delivery. It's called Winds of New Masira.
You play some obscure games. You really do.
Yeah, it's a really good card game. Really good card game of warring factions. But there are 4 ways to win the game, but you have to. It's the first person to get to 2 of them, which I didn't mind.
So how many? What do you call it? Wings of? I mean, there's wings of everything here.
Wind.
Oh, wind of.
Wind of New Masira.
Why stop there at that point? Just make up words. I mean, it may not even be on here or something. It might be too old or something.
No. It goes to Kickstarter next month, but the game's been made, so it's just going to be sort of like the Kickstarter's going to be like a delivery rather than a funding.
Right. Okay.
So
maybe it's just not on BGO. Perhaps I just don't know how to spell it. I mean, this is another thing for the publishers. Name your game something that people can find on Board Game Geek. But yeah, I don't mind this one too much. Granted, having too many ways to win could be problematic, but can't think of a game where it's got 5. But I like a game where it comes up with 2 or 3 different ways. Seven Wonders Duel has 3. You either win by points, you win by science, or you win by military. All 3 of those are perfectly legit ways to win. I like it even in a Euro game long Euro game if that happens. If I know that there's 2 ways I can win, and it's like, well, I'm not doing too well at this aspect, I should do the other bit, and there's equal chances. I'm cool with that. But 5 does seem like a lot. I'm curious what game that example that'll be. The worst every may be. I love the 5 and 6 on D6. Well, basically just successes as 1 in 3 chance rather than 1 in 2.
Well, if you start the game playing as Rex, the reporter, he's cursed. So you start the game rolling 6s, which just kills you. Yeah,
just like no good. Perseverance, multi-step solo mode again. It's like I'm not like those ones. Was this? I mowed it Turk say about it, and he said he tried to solve the issue with Voidfall. No, he did not. Voidfall solo mode. I mean, I guess it doesn't have a million steps, but the game has a million rules, so that kind of makes up for it.
Hasn't it got a million steps?
Voidfall's got so many rules, it's ridiculous. It's a big game. This one actually is I got to admit, this one irks me in Arkham Horror. Because as much as I do like the game, I haven't played it in a while, and sometimes when I do get frustrated during my plays, this is the thing that's frustrating me. The fact that when you draw the tokens out of the bag, there is an Eldritch token that auto-fails, yes. Yeah. So no matter how well you've done, always at the worst bloody time, but you pull out that tentacle token.
It is as well.
Yeah, but I get the idea that thematically you could be totally prepared and you could still lose. I mean, any Star Trek fan knows Picard's quote of it's possible to commit no mistake and still lose. Such a great quote. Yeah. But the fact is, this tentacle token is pulled out at random. So I might not see it the entire game. I might pull it 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
Voidfall lacks touch of randomness in combat. Yeah, deterministic combat, some over there. That Chaos token's why I like Lord of the Rings better. Yeah, I suppose it does have that. What else we got? Soulforge. Games released without proper long testing. I mean, that Designer / publisher. I mean, it's hard to tell.
The thing,
Yeah, the
wasn't
thing.
it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, this could be anything, but the problem is that as much as I rag on the thing for saying, look, how the hell did this get past playtesting? We don't know how much playtesting happens with a game, so we can cry foul and say that there's no way this should have got past the testing, but we don't actually know how often they playtested it. Although, to be honest, I would argue that pretty much most Stonemaier games don't go through much playtesting, but because if they did, you wouldn't have games like Tapestry. So, Twilight Inscription, yeah. The political voting part again. Yeah, there's a mini little votey thing in Twilight Inscription that's kind of weak, but that's a minor thing. And even then, if you're playing it solo, it's not a big deal. Let's see, like obscure games. Everybody's agreeing with the auto fail token. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is probably a good one. Anyway, 2 hours 5. I think we'll wrap things up there. So cheers everyone for joining in. Hopefully this will get some views. Not a ton of people on tonight, but it is the summer, so I guess everybody's just out enjoying what left there is of the sun before the storms start hitting. And it is a weird topic, because some people are sort of worried that, like, oh, are you just here to rag on designers? It's like, no, we do honestly love board games. We do love board game designers.
Some of the games I mentioned, I do like, you know.
Yeah, these are games we all...
Eclipse again, I'll play that again, but it's just that little bit that hurts me.
Well, that's the thing, is because what were the examples? I mean, Moonrakers gave it a good rating. It's still in my collection. I want to play Luminar. There was a Tribes of the Wind. Love that one. White Castle. That's a solid game.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Although, actually, now that I come to think of it, Feed the Kraken, Inventions, Splutters, Septimer. Okay. Maybe my list focused more on... I suppose if I had to say I hated a rule, I needed to give an example of a game it irked me more in, I guess. But I did mention good games as well. Over, but yeah, come to think of it, I think my list actually did focus more on games I didn't like, whereas yours were actually more games you did like, or at least had that. So that would have had that problem. But still, it's like we're not ragging on designers and saying that like this game sucks, therefore I hate this designer. It's like no, every designer can put out a bad game, and even my favorite games can have things that aren't great in it. A great example, Abyss. Love the game. Bruno Cafalo, one of my favorite designers for like games. The monster track, though, in the base game sucks as a mechanic. Yeah. It was not a good mechanic. It got fixed in the expansion, so now it's an auto-include, but I still really liked Abyss for a long time before that happened, even though that aspect of the game was a bad mechanic. So, there's always, like I say, these are irritating quirks, not necessarily irritating games, period. Maybe with the exception of one or two, but we'll see. But now, so hopefully if anybody's at the UK Games Expo, we'll both see you there next week. You're there the whole time, Thursday to Sunday?
Thursday to Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there as well, yeah, press show and nada. But, I mean, we've got a Gemini game on Friday evening, so that's going to be interesting. We'll have to try and find a table at the gaming rules section or something, tables-wise. We'll have to... I don't know, it'll be in one of the gaming halls. I think they have a few tables like cloths-wise or something, but try and find one there without getting it. I don't know. Try and be somewhere I can find you, because I've got to come straight from a World Order demo to that one. So
get me on the phone. I'll tell you where we are.
Keep it on the phone there. But yeah, so yeah, we'll be at the Games Expo. If you want to say hi, just by all means, just come up. Not a problem.
Yeah,
I have got
buying drinks for people that say hello to him.
What's that?
I said you're buying drinks for people that say hello to you.
No, not quite. But I mean, at Essen, it's hard to get hold of me sometimes because there's too many like interviews and that you got to do, like, or speaking to people. I don't do a lot of that at the Games Expo because most of the games I'm not that desperate to try, and I have got a few demos booked, but that's it. Like a few hours a day. Not much. Well, World Order, I'm definitely playing that one because I'm looking forward to that one. The new same people as Hegemony, their follow-up. So that's definitely a given. I want to try and get in on that new like Seven Wonders Duel spin-off Lord of the Rings one, but I'm still like tempering expectations with that.
Up for ages for that, won't you?
Probably. Yonder, I think's a 30-minute demo for that one. I have sources that are getting me into a Black Forest demo, the one that looks like a sequel to Glass Road. That looks pretty sweet. But saying now, one or two of the games I'm playing aren't technically there properly. I mean, I'm meeting up with Sarah Shah, Board Games in a minute, and she's going to teach me Inventors of the South Tigris. So it's like that won't be at the Games Expo, but hell yeah, I'm going to try that game. So it's kind of a mix of everything. But it's a lot easier to get hold of me at the expo. So just say hi. Same for Mark. Go say hi to him after you subscribe to his channel. So, and we've already established that he plays a lot of obscure Kickstarter games that I would probably never touch with a barge pole. So, by all means, if you want somebody who's going to actually play some of the crowdfunding stuff around,
he's going to berate me on next Friday, aren't you?
No, I mean, it's because a lot of people will still. You get the same old people previewing like the hit Kickstarter stuff. Like, oh, this is the £1 million Razor or something like that. You're playing a lot of Kickstarters that are less heard of, but some of them still make it into your collection or still end up as good games. So,
well, I got that at the minute.
Yeah, I have no idea what that game is. Never heard of
it. Awaken Realms. It's a new one.
But that's the thing. You'll get a lot of these crowdfunding games that are less heard of that could still be solid games. I won't touch them, so somebody's got to. It's better that some, not because I think they're bad, but it's just I haven't got time. I've tried to pull back from Kickstarter on a big deal. Unsettled's probably the last thing I got in the post. That was a big Kickstarter one, and even then I forgot about it because it like 2 years or something. Well, stupidly long I was waiting for that. And it's kind of like another one of those nails in the coffin to say, yeah, why did we buy the whole lot? Why did we not just get like a base set and see what it was like first? So it has that problem.
Someone's commented about Utopia. I did a Kickstarter preview for that and a solo playthrough, and they made me a card in the game.
Oh, sweet.
It looks just like me.
Is it what happens to said card though? And is it a hated card? Is it a traitor card? Does the character die at any point?
It's called the Monk.
The Monk. That works. Yeah, that would work. I could see like almost like a sort of medieval narrative game or so where you're basically the Friar Tuck character with the beard and everything.
I've got a big robe and a staff, and I've got my big beard.
That would be quite cool. But yeah, cheers for joining in, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Certainly put up some ideas of quirks you don't like. We've had a few already, but I want to read some more because they're always good fun. We'll see you on the next time I do one of these live streams. This one was a little bit haphazard, but that's because I'm out of practice. So hopefully future ones will be a bit more smooth. But anyways, cheers, Mark, for coming on. We'll certainly repeat this. And of course, yeah, he needs to go away and do some hegemony homework now. So
I do, yes. I have been looking. I've got my rules out, and I've been watching videos.
Just the basics will do. I don't need every class specific because we don't know who's playing what yet. But that's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. So, yep. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. It's only a game, regardless of whether how many designer quirks are in it. So, see you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.